What's going on, everybody? My name's Dallas. You're listening to Vic Food Stories, and this is the place where we talk about food in and around Victoria, BC. And in this instance, we're going to be talking cocktails, podcasts, businesses, books, all sorts of stuff. I'm very lucky with the fact that Shawn Soole is sitting here with me right now for this conversation. Shawn, how you doing?
I'm doing very, very well. Thank you very much. At the end of my day, we've cracked a bottle of wine. Got a bottle of Rathjen Rosé sitting on the table.
Dude, I got to say, this rosé is so smooth. And it's just like, I'm not good with wine. Like, I don't know it very well. But this thing is like, you could drink that whole bottle easily, I feel like.
I'm going to drink that whole bottle during this interview.
Dude, it's just so light. It's just like refreshing.
Yep, it's fantastic. Wild Ferment Rathjen cellars up in the Como Valley. I just ordered a case here for Clive's. That's going to be our house rosé for the next little bit. And away we go.
That stuff's money. So what would you pair that with, ideally, do you think?
Oh, like something like a good salad with like salmon on top. Some feta cheese, beets. Yeah, feta cheese, beets, nice salad, big slab of salmon on top.
Be perfect.
Yeah, it's crispy side down.
So the first time I met you was at Cafe Mexico.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
I do remember that.
Mike and I just walked in and we
had your doubts.
No, we had no idea who you were. Like, I didn't know you were this powerhouse doing like a million things. And we walked in because you were redoing that place after the fire.
Yep.
And yeah, we just walked in and we're like, who is this guy? he's crazy with the stuff he's doing there. And ever since then, I've been wanting to talk to you again. Just because online, like your Instagram, everything you do, we were talking before the podcast started, and the amount of stuff that you do is insane. Like, I think that I sort of push it pretty hard, but I can't imagine doing what you do with the amount of videos you put up. You know, you mentioned you have 4 podcasts.
Yeah.
So maybe let's start with the podcast. What's going on with your podcast?
So 2 years ago, January 2019, I started the Post Chef podcast, which I wanted to do. Like, I can't remember what sort of drew me to doing that at all at the time. To be honest with you, like everybody says now, like, oh, everybody's got a podcast. If you're a middle-aged white male, you've got a podcast. Blah blah blah. I can't remember what drew me to it, but it was something that I think was cathartic, and we talked off camera. I started listening to Gary Vee and getting me myself in a different sort of headspace. And I was like, you know what? I think that I'd like to do this. And so I kicked it off, started with the first episode. My second episode, I think, was with Solomon at Pagliacci's, and he's my best friend in the world. And we just... you just finished there, right? We just finished the renovations there, which was huge, brand new bar and everything. And so really I sort of geared it towards like taking over a family brand that's 40 years old.
Yeah. One question about that. It's pronounced Pagliacci's, right?
Pagliacci's, yeah.
It's not Pagliacci's.
Not Pagliacci's.
But Pegs is correct.
Pegs is correct.
That's correct.
Yes.
But it's Pagliacci's.
Pagliacci's, but Pegs is correct.
Okay.
So I sort of kicked it off, and then it started rolling. I think I went to San Antonio just after that for the San Antonio Cocktail Conference. But yeah, it was something that sort of grew organically for me, but it was something that I wanted to do for the industry, not so much thinking that there was a gap in the market for it or anything. So Post Shift started as a podcast on Tuesday and Friday. On Tuesdays, my little like weekly rant about work-life balance or stuff like trying to demystify what a lot of kids think about the industry and about pillars in the industry like myself, and how they sort of perceive brand ambassadors and how they perceive like this cool, like what you said, like you see on social media, like I do a ton of stuff. Like that's also very stressful and can be depressing at times, and being an entrepreneur is not the easiest thing in the world. So I try and demystify those sort of things and bring a little bit of realism to it all. And then Friday I do an interview with an industry stalwart. So whether it be Zoom calls now or in-person interviews. And then fast forward to January this year, I started doing the BC Spirits podcast, which is my sort of passion project about BC craft distilleries and spirits. And so I do a tasting podcast on Wednesday, and then I do an interview with a distiller or a producer on Thursday.
And is it the producer that made the thing that you tasted?
No, because usually it's BC Spirits. I do a spirit a day every day of the week.
Okay.
And then I've got a group of like 6 really talented at-home mixologists or at-home bartenders who create cocktails on a daily basis as well. So I tag them and repost a lot of their cocktails on the thing because they do great cocktails with local spirits. So I'm like, I don't need to develop any of these. I've got great people who are doing it for us, and it plugs them and so on and so forth. And then on Wednesdays, I usually do a big tasting grouped up. So I've done like elderflowers. Like last week was the elderflower liqueur off because we had like 4 elderflower liqueurs that I tasted side by side. I've done whiskey offs. I've done all the cassises and Kia Royales. So I did an episode with my wife, which she only makes a very light appearance every now and then on my podcast. But on the back deck, we set up the bar and I pulled out all the cassises I have in my collection, which is like 7 cassises. And I got a couple of bottles of bubbles and I made her Kia Royales. And then she picked her favorite Kia Royale out of all of those. And so then Thursdays, it's getting that connection. You're the same. You want to get that connection about this industry is very passion driven. And so you want to figure out why that person does what they do. Because when people look from outside look in, it looks super eccentric and weird and doesn't make any sense to the general consumer. So you want to make that connection, like, why are you doing this? Like, did you set up a distillery in Duncan and decide to make vermouth with Rathjan Cellars? With like I had Jessica from Ampersand last week.
And of course, there's a whole story behind why that was done.
Exactly, and like where they came from. And I think the biggest surprise for me was Josh from Montrachet Spirits up in Revelstoke. He was a deep underwater welder for like the military and the oil industry, and he did his back in. And so then he was like, well, I can't dive anymore. So semi-retired to Revelstoke and decided to open up a distillery and welded everything himself. So all his stills are all welded just by him.
That's sick.
So yeah, so it is a ton of work producing 4 individual episodes every single week.
And again, do all 4 of those have video or just some of them?
Most of them have video.
Yeah, the video is really the part for me that adds the time.
Yeah.
The audio, if I was just doing audio, it's fine. Like I can do that and it's great. Once you throw the video in, and especially when you have multicam like this, where you have to start toggling back and forth. Yeah. Yeah, that adds a bit of time.
You're even more advanced than me. Like I keep it super simple, like one shot straight to the money.
You're doing yourself a favor.
Yeah, one shot straight to the money. I keep it nice and simple. But I also see when it comes to the podcast, it's about how do people digest your message. Like some people like to listen, some people like to read, some people like to watch videos. So I try and take away as many barriers and hurdles as I can. I'm trying to get to the stage where I'm actually transcribing every single episode of my podcast into written as well.
Would that be a human doing that, or is there services that would do that?
There's a couple of services, but to really get it right, you've sort of got to download it and then put it through like Fiverr or something like that. I use Fiverr a ton for that sort of services where you get like copywriting and stuff like that. But yeah, like it all depends on how people digest to think that someone's only going to digest your information on YouTube or on your podcast. It seems very narrow-minded when you just put it out everywhere.
One thing I've noticed actually is people originally said they would only listen to podcasts. And since they found out that I have a video version, people have been transitioning over to the video version.
Exactly.
Because they want to see the people. But it's like they didn't realize that they actually like to consume it that way.
Yep. So just go take away the hurdles.
You do. And I think that, these conversations are happening. It's just a matter of, do you want to spend the extra time to deal with having that extra bit of content as far as like adding a video?
Yeah. And I think any piece of content is like I was just saying to my friend, like a shotgun blast against a barn side. Some things get through for certain people. Some things don't get through for certain people. Some people don't have 10 minutes to sit and watch a video. Other people do. So it just all depends on how you want to absorb it.
Or 2 hours.
Or 2 hours.
And some people have said to me that I should make these shorter, but I kind of feel like if there's content and it's flowing, just let it go. And if somebody, I kind of like think you can pause it and come back later, then there'll be more there for you. But if you don't want to hear it all, that's okay.
See, I think you need an assistant so you can just chop it up.
That'd be sick. I would love to have an assistant. But I mean, there's no money transpiring with this ever, so I can't afford to pay anybody. But it's pretty amazing. Like for me, starting on Instagram, taking photos, it now has transcended that. And now for me, it's about connecting with people. Like I do want to tell the stories because it like showing the food that's being made is amazing. because that tells stories in itself. But when you talk to the actual people, like that's for me now where the real magic is. And it's just the transfer of energy when we're getting together and chatting. And I find a lot of value in that for like me as a human being.
Well, I think COVID, if anything, has peeled away a lot of the glamorousness of the industry in a way that, like, as a restaurant operator or a head chef or something, like, you could have a horrible day and then service starts and it's and you're smiling and you're touching tables, kissing babies and stuff. And I think humanizing how much work it takes to be a restaurateur or to make it a certain dish or to work as hard as you do to sort of aspire to a certain level, having someone like yourself to sort of peel those layers away and sort of show like the, not detriment, but like the amount of work it takes and the sacrifice it takes to get to a certain stage.
You almost have to be crazy to want to do it.
Oh, 100%.
On some level.
Where everybody in this industry is mental. If you're in a restaurant, you're clinically insane.
I'm really, really good friends with Rap and Roll. I'm basically part of their family now, like literally. And like I'll be there 3 or 4 hours after they close. They're still working.
Yep.
Then the next morning they're going to be there 2 hours before they open, and they're just always there.
Mm-hmm.
They don't get time off. Especially when they did the Beirut fundraiser a couple weeks ago.
That, yeah.
Yeah. So what that meant was they're now committed to now 2 weeks without a day off. And even on the day off, they come in.
Yeah.
So I can totally appreciate, after getting to know a lot of people, just how serious it is.
Yeah. And it is that fine balance between necessity and happiness. And I think with hospitality, people is always toggling bit by bit. Like some days you're just like, oh, this has got to end. Like I need a day off. But then the next day something happens. You're like, I'm so happy to be in this industry. I love this industry. I had a great shift, great customers in tonight. Everybody had a great time. We're in our deep down DNA, we're people pleasers. And that's what it is. That's why like we can all laugh at Yelp reviews and TripAdvisor and stuff like that. But like when if you're an operator and owner, like you really get one of those, it guts you like a fish. You're just like, oh, you left my place not happy. And that like we want you to feel happy and warm when you walk into our place and when you walk out of our place. Happier and warmer when you walk out of our place. So I think ingrained DNA people pleasers. And so it's always this toggle between happiness and just necessity. And it is always one of those, you have a good week, you have a bad week. You have a good shift, you have a bad shift. And it's just like almost like a drug where you're just like, oh,
chasing
always chasing that next high.
Because I've seen so many times, or not so many times, but quite a number of times where I've been talking to someone that I know and they did get like a 1 out of 5 review. Uh-huh. And it doesn't matter if they normally get 5 out of 5. That 1 out of 5 totally crushes them.
For days.
Yes.
For days.
And it drives me nuts that people, if there is an issue, like go and speak with them in person. Mm-hmm. If they don't handle it properly, then do what you need to do. But like give them a chance, because quite often places I think do want to have you be happy when you leave. Mm-hmm. And they're going to do right by the person.
My wife is the most understanding woman in the world when it comes to that, because like I can be on a massive high for weeks and weeks and weeks, and then something happens and I'm on the floor. Like instantly.
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh, just took the wind out of your sails. You're literally like a massive ship. And then all of a sudden something happens and you're this little dinghy in the rough waters. And you're just like, but why is this happening to me?
Yeah. What do you think when someone comes into an establishment, what's like the number one most important thing for creating the type of experience you would want someone to have?
Oh, see, this one's a hard one because I've always contemplated this one. I think it's a symbiotic relationship. And I feel to a degree, the symbiotic relationship between restaurant and customer has sort of devolved a little bit in the last 10 years because of online and social media and so on and so forth. It should be a symbiotic relationship where the person's coming in to experience what you have, and you're there to give people that experience. And I think it's devolved a little bit, whether it be culture or franchises or anything like that, or being something for everybody. I think at the end of the day, it's this very tenuous balance of keeping your mission statement and your mantra of like what you want to be, and also keeping everybody happy at the same time. with also the realization that you're not going to be able to keep everybody happy all the time. Like,
of course, there's always going to be some random person that you just will never make happy.
Exactly. But I think there's that symbiotic relationship of give and take, of I'm here to take whatever you're willing to give, and you're here to give me what you are offering within your little constraints or boxes of what you do. You know, you don't go into a Michelin star restaurant and ask for a hamburger. You know, same reason you wouldn't go to a pub and ask for caviar. You know, I had that back in the day here at Clive's, way more aggressively back in the day when we didn't really have cocktail culture in Victoria. We wouldn't do cosmopolitans. And people were like, you don't have Jaeger? Like, what sort of bar doesn't have Jaeger? I'm like, well, go across the street and ask if they have Chinar. I've got Chinar in the well. I'll pour you some Chinar. No problems in the world. But so it's this sort of interesting like where you wouldn't walk into a high-end cocktail bar and order a Jaeger bomb, but you wouldn't go to a dive bar and order a perfect Manhattan. You know, it seems to be demonized when you walk in and ask for a Jaeger bomb in a fancy restaurant or a fancy cocktail bar, but it doesn't get you'd never, a customer would never ask for a perfect Manhattan at a dive bar.
Do you think it's important then to sort of create what the expectation the customer should have when they first walk in then? Like to manage the expectations?
I think so. I think there's a lot of things that people, I call it subconscious chaos. I feel that the world outside of any restaurant or bar is chaotic, whether it be getting to work through traffic or your shitty boss at work. Can I swear on the podcast?
Go for it, dude. You can say whatever you want. You're good.
Your shitty boss at work, or the crappy lunch you had, or you got pooped on by a seagull on the way to the restaurant.
Which, by the way, I got shit on twice in the same day in 2 different locations by birds like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Down on Government Street and Wharf Street is pretty aggressive.
One was right by the Inner Harbor.
Yeah.
I was having Hanks, like eating my burger.
As you do.
It hit me in the head. And then I went to Mai Tai for dinner. And then standing outside there, I got crapped on again. And it hasn't happened any other day in the past like 20, 30 years. But it happened twice on that day.
It's a lucky day.
I know. I wanted to buy a lottery ticket.
You should have.
And I didn't get to one.
So I think with the experience, like, I see it as when people are out there in their ecosystem, it's chaotic and noisy and loud and disorganized. But when you step through over that threshold, it should be paced and comfortable and neat and organized and almost regimented to a degree. I look at it as like a duck on water. You know, like a duck on water looks peaceful and calm, just gleaming across the top of the water. But underneath that water, those legs are just like churning hard so they don't sink. And so that's what I see as a restaurant. So when I was growing up, when I first started in the restaurant industry, I worked in a fine dining, like super fine dining, silver service style place. And everything was like thumbnails and angles and all that sort of stuff. And I've kept that sort of mentality that the maitre d' sort of fell to me, because when you sit at a table, regardless of how chaotic your brain is, when you sit at that table and you see that organization and the straight lines and the edges and everything, it just should subconsciously calm you. And you should feel comfortable in a space straight away. It doesn't matter if you're a fine dining restaurant where you're wearing a suit and a tie. It's that nature of systems and places and everything that sort of ties in, whether it be the music, the uniforms. I've been really big on uniforms in the last couple of years when it comes to like, what does the uniform say about the venue? How the music sounds? What's the lighting like? What's everybody else drinking? What are the glassware like? Those little things in people's heads, they will never register them, but subconsciously it sets a tone. And bit by bit, you want to take them down from that chaos to this sort of almost like a tuning fork. Ding! And you just want to bring them down to this place where they're just comfortable and calm when they sit down at a table and they're like, oh, my water's here. My plate, well, it's a little bit difficult with COVID right now. We've got our drop zone here on the table, but like my cup's here, my cutlery is here, my glass gets put down on this side, I get picked up on the left side. So it's these little things that I try and take out this sort of chaotic noise that happens in people's lives out there.
And one thing you said there was about uniforms.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never really, I guess I have sort of paid attention to people in like uniforms in restaurants, but I haven't really paid attention, I don't think. So I was just thinking about that here with you mentioning that. And so what do you think with a uniform? What should that really say?
I think it should set a tone. We're slowly but surely progressing to that, probably in October, going back to the chef coats, very similar to what we had at FTW back in the day. where everybody, like all the bar staff will be in chef coats, like nice short sleeve. They're comfortable. You wear a t-shirt on it. You can go commando on it if you really want to. It's just the most airy, breezy wonderfulness that it is. West, one of my crew, one of my kids at FTW, he's over at Olo now. Said it perfectly when someone asked him about the chef coats. He's like, when I'm getting ready for work, I don't have to worry about the way I look. I don't have to worry about my tie, my vest being dry cleaned, anything like that. I show up in a t-shirt, I throw on my vest, it's got my name on it, it's got the emblem on it, and all my team looks the same. And our goal is the same. Our duties are the same. Our goal is to make you as happy as possible. And it has nothing to do with whether or not I'm wearing the swankiest bow tie, or my tie pin's right, or my vest is pressed. It's about coming in and just serving the customer.
And I guess that's removing friction for your employees, because now you're making it easier for them. Yep. They don't have to worry about any of that. You just show up and just do your best.
Yep. And we all have a common goal. Like I'm from a military family, so my dad was ex-military, and so I'm the eldest of 6 as well. So we're all 18 months apart. So like growing up as eldest of family in a ex-military family, having this sort of rhythm and regimentation, and it does sort of go against the easy breezy flow of the West Coast a little bit to a degree, but when everybody has that same goal in mind, when everybody has that same thought process, that same movement, everything, your personality really comes out, because all the other stuff you usually think about, whether like again, uniform or the way that you pour or something like that, all that gets taken away, and your true personality just comes out to the customer, because everybody can do the exact same movement and the exact same cocktail, the exact same way, the exact same time and speed, and it's just about the customer service.
And you mentioned FTW.
Yes.
And unfortunately, I never got in there when it was open. And I was so devastated when I saw that it closed down.
Yes.
Yeah.
So was I.
Yeah. How would you describe FTW, what that was when it was open, for anyone that didn't go?
FTW was an interesting little thing, because the space called for like this 1950s LA vibe.
And for people that don't know, it's across the hall from Bartholomew's.
Mm-hmm. And Bartholomew's is gone now too.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Bart's is shut down too. So,
no.
Yeah. So it was this little 38-seat space that had been around for about 20, 30 years. Nothing had really gone in there that had been successful. And we turned into this 1950s LA. What it reminded me is when you go to the LA Strip, down from the movie lots and stuff, like you drive down these strips and you see these bars behind big leather doors, and you'd open them up and it'd be this great space, and you can imagine Sinatra sitting in a booth having like 3 martinis and lunch in between like breaks in the movie set or the recording studio. And that's kind of what we were trying to redo. But the cool thing we did is that we definitely kept our cocktail ideas in that 50s sort of range, but then put a real big molecular spin on it. So our last menu before we shut had like a sideshow, like a circus sideshow section, where we had cocktails inspired by the circus sideshow, which included like a popcorn washed rum old fashioned style cocktail. Ooh. One that had a like bobbing for apples.
Yep.
And so we put that in a skull head, did a foam on top, and then sweet pickled crab apples, and put crab apples in like full-size crab apples in the drink. That actually won. That one had the foam was a hay infused foam. So I got hay and gave it a really good clean, and then soaked it in sugar syrup.
Okay.
And then turned that into a foam. So it smelled like hay on the nose, but it was bobbing for apples.
That's crazy.
And so we did this sort of like super modern molecular gastronomic, molecular mixology style drinks menu, but geared it back towards the 50s. So we still had like a classic highball, which was Suntory Toki and soda. And the cool thing with that is that in the 50s, 60s, Sammy Davis Jr. was a spokesman for Suntory. If you go to YouTube, type in Sammy Davis Jr. scatting Suntory, there's a whole ad for Suntory of Sammy Davis like scatting. He never says anything except for Suntory at the very end for like 2.5 minutes with a Suntory bottle, and he plays it like a cello. He's like dum 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 dum, and then he pours it over the cracked ice, and he's like Suntory. Puts it down. He's smoking cigarettes. He's drinking. It's just, and I was like, okay, so we're going to do a classic highball, and my crew's like, oh well, that's pretty easy. I'm like, well, no, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in 7 different styles of sparkling water. And we're going to taste Suntory Toki with all these sparkling waters to see which one goes best. And then you start really geeking out about sparkling water with whiskey. And so we taste all these sparkling waters and we're like, okay, this one. And it's just random French sparkling water, really small bubbles from Bossa imports that we had to pick up from Market on Yates every couple of days. And that's all it was, a double shot of Suntory Toki with this very specific sparkling water. It just tasted money, sold tons of them, but it's just a classic whiskey highball. So
it's amazing that though with water, how water can change everything. Because we went to a sake brewery in Japan when I was there with Anton. Wow. We went to one of them right by Mount Fuji. So they had in the main place where you could buy everything, and in the main area there, they had this little well kind of with water from Mount Fuji coming out.
Seriously?
And you could just take a glass and put it under and drink it. And it was like buttery. I've never had water like that in my life.
It's crazy, isn't it?
It was the most insane thing. And then like when we got private tours at Yamazaki and Hakushu.
Of course you did.
which were sick. But going to those tours, like we learned that they put those breweries in those locations because of the water. That's why.
It's mental, isn't it?
It's crazy.
Like, and people think like, oh, the water doesn't really matter. I'm like, yeah, but if the alcohol content's 40, then that means 60% of that bottle is water. Like 40% alcohol, the rest is water. Like it means something. We did the same thing with going back to FW. We did the Frank Sinatra, and it was just a triple pour of Jack Daniel's single barrel because that was Frank's. He was a Jack Daniel's drinker. So we did a triple, and we poured like 7 still waters to put on the side. Hand carved ice, triple pour of the Jack Daniel's single barrel with a side of water, and we went through all these waters. And I picked up Evian, and I thought, it's just gonna be the baseline. It's gonna be like if we're gonna do all these waters, that's gonna be the one that's just like, it's good, but it's the baseline. And we all agreed that the Evian was the best. And then West was doing a little bit more research once we started opening, and we found this old Sinatra rider for one of his performances, and it lists like his vodka, and he has to have these sort of M&Ms and sardines and so on and so forth. But the key was these bottles of Jack Daniels, and then bottles of room temperature Evian water. And I'm like, well, obviously, like Frank drank his Jack Daniels with a splash of Evian. And I was like, okay, obviously that means something. It's serendipitous. So that's on the menu now.
That's sick. Do you think you'll ever open another bar in town?
I got asked that question today, actually. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I will never say never.
Well, I mean, like, again, you do so much stuff. Like, where would you have the time to do that? But
I've taken back over this place.
I know. And we're gonna get into that. I wanted to ask you, though, too, about Soole Hospitality Concepts.
Okay.
And just to sort of explain to everyone what that was.
I think that's probably the main reason why I probably wouldn't open something else. Like, I love opening bars. Like, I love opening bars and restaurants. I love that grind, that work that it takes to build a team and build a menu and stuff like that. I don't think it's the best use of my skills and my time in this day in this time. I think that's more is that it takes everything that I'm sort of doing right now and just puts it into one channel very quickly. It's like you're doing this and this and this, but then when you open a place, it's like, okay, you do everything for that one place. And I think...
So do you feel like you're going to be able to reach a lot more people or have a bigger impact?
I think that's what it is. I think opening a venue is great, but from a pure legacy point of view, and I think over the last couple of years, like when I opened up Little Jumbo in 2013, and I left here, and then I did FTW in 2017, I think legacy has changed definitions for me. And legacy used to be like a venue-specific legacy, whereas now SHC and all the things that I'm doing, my legacy is tweaked. Like my legacy is not so much having one team of 3 or 4 people that I train and take to a certain level. It's industry-wide, and it's not about just making one venue really, really good. It's about making as many venues as I can good. Whether it be interior design and construction or online marketing or social media and all that sort of stuff. So
you'll basically advise like a business or a restaurant on everything they need to do?
I can take now with everything that I'm doing, I can take from a napkin concept
Yeah.
to post operations all within my companies.
Wow.
I've got a branding and design guy who does menus and logos and everything. So he's done all my branding. He actually did Little Jumbo branding back in the day. So funnily enough, with the tattoo, he sent me this through, and because I was just so busy with the opening of Little Jumbo, I forgot to message him back and say, yeah, it's really good. And then I went and got the tattoo. And so he saw my Facebook post with the tattoo, and he texts me, he's like, so you're happy with the branding? I'm like, yep.
Yeah, you're committed for life.
Yeah. So I got the tattoo literally the day we signed the lease for Jumbo. But I think legacy wise, I think that's what's sort of, as you get older, I think like before it's not ego driven, but it's very, you want to sort of accomplish something by a certain age in the industry, like opening your own venue or so on and so forth. And I think it's changed now where like Mike Norbury, you interviewed him and Anton for Ine, like he was one of my kids. And, so I've got like this whole sort of brood of bartenders that I sort of train and mentor and talk to and stuff like that. So I think I see that as my legacy more so than a singular, almost inward feeling of like opening your own venue.
Well, I would say this is amazing because it sounds like you have really good self-awareness.
Yeah, it's taken me a long time. Like,
of course, it takes time to get more data, yeah. Right?
It's taken me long. Like opening 3 venues last year in like 5 months in Singapore was a huge experience.
Yeah. So how did that happen?
So that was through a few things, but one of my good friends who used to be here in Victoria moved to Singapore about 6 years ago. And he opened a place there, and then they want to expand. And I think he reached out to me May 1st or just before May 1st last year. And I was like, oh, we're talking about doing this concept, and here's the concept sheets and design work and stuff. I'm like, okay, cool. And I think I was on vacation with the family at that time. I came home for a week, and I went to Portugal to speak at the Lisbon Bar Show. And I had a Zoom meeting or a phone meeting with them, a video call conference when I was there, and I wrote the contract up while I was in Lisbon. I came back from Lisbon for 1 week, and then I flew to Singapore for 2.5 months. So
and you opened 3 restaurants in
3 restaurants in 5 months.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So a lot of the design and sort of layout work had been done, but none of the menus, none of the hiring and that sort of thing. And I think I posted a video on May 1st when I first landed. Oh, sorry, not May 1st, May 27th when I first landed in Singapore. And it's just like dirt floors, a little bit of framing, and that's it. And then we opened that on June 3rd. So literally a month between landing and thing. I had to do a full menu, full wine list, full food dev. And then we opened up a little cocktail bar. So the first restaurant was like 70 seats in the front called Misfits. Very Spanish style, Mediterranean, Greek island sort of feel to it. And then in the back, they want to do like a 15-seat speakeasy called Roxy. And that was going to be Latin America. So new world, old world, sort of, new world, old world. And so we did all Latin America. So lots of rum, tequila, mezcal, soto, that sort of thing. And then my second visit back in, I think August, was to do the third venue, which was called Bayside, over right on Fullerton Place. So, Singapore's the big 3-tower yacht on the top sort of deal, literally straight across from that. And the group that owned that area had basically leveled a garden bed to put this bar in. And it was horribly designed. And sort of like we tried to get our finger in the pie earlier on design, and so we had to really rip everything out and start again. And so that opened along with Roxy, my second visit. And so 3 venues in 5 months.
And how many restaurants would you say you've worked in or had a hand in over the years? Since
Little Jumbo in 2013, I worked at 13 venues.
Wow.
In one way, shape, or form, from consulting on designing, opening, owning. Yeah, so like 13 venues in 7 years.
And how, with the consulting and that, how did that come to be that you sort of got into that role? Like, was it just a natural thing that just over time you just realized that this is something I'm good at and I have vision, or how did that work?
Um, that was a hard slog, to be honest with you, because it's something that's never really existed in Victoria anyway. And so when I did Cafe Mexico, like we talked about Cafe Mexico, that was a cold call. I literally reached out on Facebook. I was like, saw the article, you're reopening, would love to help out. And they're like, oh, okay, cool. Like, let's sit down, chat, and see how much. Like, so I gave them a quote.
Because something something that stands out for me at Mexico was you were doing something where one of the barrels, like you wouldn't fully empty it, and you would sort of mix different, like,
so they were aged.
Yeah, and that was a really cool thing where you're getting different ages of the alcohol.
Yeah, so
together.
that those sort of things. The good thing is that Brad and Hilda are amazing operators. Brad's been doing it for 30-something years. Like, Cafe Mexico was 30 years old. Before that, he had 2 or 3 restaurants. So he used to own the restaurant that was in the Bent Mast before the Bent Mast. Absolutely amazing operator. And so pairing up with them, it was a lot of work because the scope of the work, once we really started digging in, like the floors had to get replaced because they were fire damaged. All the walls had to get sandblasted because they were fire damaged. But we had to be careful on the walls because they're 120-year-old brick. And so the guys who came in and sandblasted it too heavy with too heavy grit. So then we had to get them all repointed. And I remember just before I flew out to Tales of the Cocktail for a seminar, I literally climbed up on a ladder and a ruler and chalk and designed that back bar like with like a ladder and chalk. So I left with this big slabbed wall of plywood with boxes drawn in chalk. I was like, this is the boxes that you need to put in. And then they just built boxes and screwed them in on that side. So that was like everything from the basic booths across in the bar and everything I designed from like by hand, drafted out. And so I think when it came to consulting here in Victoria, I had to make the decision, if I was going to do it, that I had to attack it. It couldn't be like wait for it to happen. It had to be like, if some place burned down or a place needed work, like I'd hit up places that I'd go and have cocktails. I'm like, your cocktails are rubbish. Like, don't mean to be rude, but like you're a Caribbean bar that doesn't serve good mojitos. Let me help you out. And so there was a little bit of, well, it's a little bit of humility because you're sort of asking for work, but also there's a little bit of arrogance in the fact that you think you can do better than they're doing. So it's just sort of balancing act. So I helped out Guild for a long time before they got taken over. I helped out with their training and beer program and so on and so forth, inventory and the financial back end stuff. I'm helping Sizzling Tandoor with their expansion right now. I helped them with the first time round on Johnson Street, Japanese Village's little lounge. I did nothing with the cocktail program at all because they didn't want anything with the cocktail program, but I came in, I redesigned the bar, ripped out the sushi bar, my contractor ripped out the sushi bar, my interior designer paired everything up because we couldn't really upgrade the space because Japanese Village is Japanese Village. So we had to sort of like try and pair everything up with 30-year-old decor. That Japanese Village is still going to be Japanese Village and it's always awesome, but we had to pair it up, which was really difficult. We had to pull a guy out of retirement to pour the bar top because he did the original bar top in 1978 or something. So we pulled him out of retirement to lay down the new bar top.
Is that purely because of the fact he was in it before? Did he do something unique? He
did something super unique. It was a very specific resin mix with flake that got dropped into a mold, and we couldn't find anyone in town to do it. So they pulled this guy out of retirement and pulled like this bar top to match everything.
That's crazy.
So, but it was just bit by bit of like this sort of a balancing act between humility and arrogance to sort of build the business up, which I still have to do now. I have to remind myself to keep doing the same thing all the time.
Yeah. Do you ever struggle like with ego? Is that ever a thing that you battle with? Like your ego says, "Oh, you should do this," but you know it really you shouldn't do that.
I have a concept called my banner and my Hulk.
Okay.
So my wife sees my banner, my very vulnerable, like second guessing, constantly not very confident person, which I am. I've got hardcore social anxiety and introvertness, which people go, no. But then my Hulk is the guy you see behind the bar. He's the guy's like, hey, 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 hey. And so I'm constantly struggling with Hulk and Banner.
How difficult do you find it to be able to recharge?
I don't take days off. I take hours off.
Okay.
So, but I find the things that make me happy in the shortest period of time. So spending time with my family. Now, mainly, my wife is ridiculous. Like I said, my wife is ridiculous understanding. My daughter is too. They know that if I go out for a hike or breakfast, that's my recharge time. I can recharge pretty quickly. But then I find things that are just for me as well. So I love my cigars. So smoking a cigar on the back deck, just chilling out. I'll be on my phone. I'll be doing social media, or I'll be answering emails during this time. I'll have my laptop on my lap. But it's my time. Like, it's my time to just relax with a whiskey and a cigar. And I'll just chill out like that. So for me, recharging is not really a necessary thing, because I wake up every morning, sometimes rough, sometimes good. But it's that chase, it's that process, it's that like constant, like, okay, what do I have to achieve today? Like, I know what I have to do. Obviously, COVID's very hard for everybody right now, because it's very repetitive, because you can't go out, you can't go sit at the coffee shop and do your edits of your book, you got to sit in your office and do that. But I find that's what keeps me going. It's that all the time.
So you straight up love the process, like Gary Vee says.
Yes.
Because you enjoy every part of it. You're not.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not going to rah it and say like I love it all the time. There's times when I wake up and I'm just like.
When I do these podcasts, there's parts of this process that I hate.
Yeah.
When I'm actually putting it together, there's some parts that I really don't like. And
you're just like, oh, I just want this to be done, or I just want a break, or I just want something. And so I never try and rah. I try and keep very, like, a couple of weeks ago, on a Saturday, like, I just did a massive, like, 12-hour shift here. It was busy. And I woke up, and I'm a part of a charity organization out of Toronto called the Bartenders Benevolent Fund. So usually on Saturday morning, we do a big meeting and go through all the grants and say, yes, you get money, no, you get money, don't, and so on and so forth. And so that's usually at 10 o'clock in the morning. And so I had to do that, and then I had to do some errands for this place. And I actually stopped and I tweeted out to everybody. I was like, you know what? I can handle this most of the time. Today's hard. Like, today's a hard one. You know, I've had 3 nitros. I'm bad. My feet are killing me. Like, being back behind the bar is absolutely great. Next morning, not so much, because my feet ache, my knees are bad. And so, like, I like to show people that there's some vulnerability to it. Like, I'm not a steamroller that just keeps going and going and going. Like, there is times when I was like, most of the time I'm super positive, want everybody to succeed. You can do it. You can do it. You can do it. And there's other times I'm like, I just want to go back to bed. I want to spend time with my wife.
Are you naturally a positive person? Because
man, that's a curveball.
Well, no, it just popped into my head. The reason why I ask is because I'm not, and everyone a lot of people that know me, they all think like I'm always super positive, but I make a conscious choice to be that way.
I would say I'm a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. Growing up, like I said, I grew up in a big family. I went to 14 different schools between preschool and grade 12, and 2 of those schools I went to for 3 years and 4 years. So you can imagine, I think I went to grade 5, like 4 grade 5 schools. So having friends, moving, I had a very upheaval life, like, upbringing with my family. We moved around a lot. My dad was ex-military, and so in the back of your head, you sort of got to shut that voice up. And I think that's a little bit goes back to that Banner and Hulk of like, you got to shut that voice up sometimes and let Hulk drive. Of like, oh, shit's going good right now. Something bad's going to happen soon. Like, oh, you've made some good friends at school. You're starting to fit in. You're not the weird geeky kid who like should be 2 grades ahead and nailing through all his classes and wearing secondhand clothes and shit, like the weird like secondhand clothes, not the good secondhand clothes, like weird secondhand clothes, at a new school, and then you got to move again and start the process all over again. So I think it's a little bit of column. Like, there's days when I wake up, I'm just like, gun-ho, like freaking loving life. The patio, to be honest, like last week, the big win for me was putting the patio out the front at Clive's. Like that had been a 1 month stress ball in my head. As soon as that happened, it like took a weight off my shoulder.
Yeah. Who came up with that idea then? Was it you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think with Clive's, like there's always going to be that hook. You know, like when you come to Clive's, like without bar seats as well, which really is a killer. You'd come to Clive's back in the day and you go, oh, I might be able to get sit at the bar, but if I sit at the floor, that'll be okay. But without bar seats, what's the hook? You know, sitting on the floor, you can still get a great experience from the staff, are great here. Me and Dave get out from behind the bar and touch tables, kiss babies and stuff. But now with the patio, it's like, okay, well, let's go down to Clive's. We may get onto the patio. If we don't get on the patio, I'll be okay with inside. So that's now the hook. So now, like last week was like twice as busy as we've had since we reopened.
I love it.
Which was huge. And it leans back into the sort of European aperitivo style that I want Clive to sort of go back into that direction. Aperol spritzers, Negronis, Americanos. This week on the happy hour menu, I'm putting Averna lemonade back on the menu, which is Averna and lemon tonic, which is money. So it's sort of gearing back to where I want Clive's to be in the next 6 months.
And those happy hour menus, do you change those every week?
Happy menus, they're evolving. Because I'm trying to wind down my beer program to be a bit smaller, wind down my wine program to be a bit smaller, and we're putting more more cocktails on tap. So probably Friday this week, I think Quinn messaged me. So Quinn and Michaela have got their the Esquire Wine Company, their dry vermouth and tonic. They're exclusively kegging that for us, and so they're going to keg it and carbonate it, pre-mixed and everything on site there, and just deliver us kegs. And then we just tap it, and we'll have vermouth and tonic on tap. So that's kind of cool.
That's amazing.
So in the next 3 to 4 weeks, we'll probably see. We've already got Negronis on tap, vermouth and tonic on tap, Aperol spritzers on tap, and a prosecco on tap. And so we're just cutting down our beer program just because we don't sell enough beer, and cocktails sell. So
how did this come to be with you coming back to Clive's?
Oh, that's a good story. So Jace and Alicia have been here pretty much since I left. So Jace took over from me when I left in 2013 to open Jumbo. And just during COVID, he took the chance to sort of take a look inward of what I shouldn't really talk for Jace, but like take a look at what he wanted to do in the industry. And working late nights, it's a drag. It does take a toll on your body. So working late nights and working a beast that is Clive's. Like Clive's is a huge responsibility as a brand to continue constantly. It's a little bit of a hamster in the wheel, and the hamster doesn't stop. And so he took the opportunity to step away and sort of reevaluate. And he's now a manager over at Vessel Liquor, which I think is awesome.
I love Vessel. I was just in there a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
And my girlfriend found something. She's like, oh my God, I had this in Edmonton. I couldn't find it anywhere. Yeah. And here we go.
Some of the weirdest stuff in there, which is great. But so yeah, he's over there, he's got a work-life balance, which I actually did a podcast today about work-life balance, because it is very, like you said, self-aware. Like my work-life balance is not like someone else's work-life balance, and I shouldn't aspire to your work-life balance, or so on and so forth. And so I reached out to the hotel and I was like, hey, so heard you're looking for someone. Would you be up for listening, like sitting down and having a chat? So we had a chat, and I think a few things that are happening in the city with like Veneto no longer being Veneto, and sort of losing that sort of foundation of cocktail culture, which Veneto is like literally it's Clive's and Veneto, then Jumbo on top, and Cenote and Sherwood, and Wind Cries Mary and Nubo now and stuff like that. So it's losing like a big foundational chunk out of our industry, out of our culture, I think was a big blow to me personally. Not because I had anything like invested in Veneto apart from the kids that work there and mentoring them, but it was just like one of those things. Is like,
did you work with all of them there?
Most of them, yeah.
Okay.
Like Brant was with me at Little Jumbo. Mikey was with me at FTW.
Yeah.
So most of them had been with me in one way, shape, or form. But it was a fact. It sort of with that sort of happening, it took me way back to 2009 when I first took over Clive's, and we literally had Clive's and Solomon's. And then Veneto came on the scene, and Solomon's left the scene. And so it took me back to like, like one of those like flashback Walt Disney style, like when what's his name tastes Ratatouille for the first time and he goes back to his childhood. It was literally like a flashback back to 2009 when I was like remembering Clive's, like when I tell stories about Clive's back in the day when I first took over, and Saturday nights would be me and chef, so no support, no floor staff, just me on the floor, chef in the back, and I'd ring out $120, not in tips, like $120 in sales on a Saturday night. And that sort of slow progressive build and sacrifice and work, and like texting all your friends to come down and have cocktails, because cocktails just weren't a thing at all in 2009. And so it took me back to this time where like cocktail culture was just a slow burn, and that wasn't quick. Like people think that Clive's happened really quickly. Like I took over in May 2009. I would say that Clive's became Clive's in October 2010. So like 18 months of this excruciating slow burn.
Was it acknowledgeable for you when that happened? Like looking back, you can sort of see the shift, I guess, or the change.
Yeah.
But at the time, could you acknowledge that? Like, did it ever hit?
Not on a level that I was aware of. Not on a level that I was like, I'm making a difference. And then 2010 sort of happened. I got a new bartender on. 2011 and 2012, we got the back-to-back world's best bar in the like top 4 world's best hotel bar at Sales of the Cocktail, which still no other bar in all of Canada has even got to the top 4 ever.
Yeah, that's insane.
And this is 2011 and 2012. So the amount of work it took to that. So like when Veneto sort of disappeared and sort of dissolved, it sort of pushed me to go, okay, well, I made a joke to the kids and I was like, "Oh, Dad's going to come out of retirement and freaking like pick up the bootstraps." Yeah. But like it really coming back to Clive's was really a legacy thing. It goes back to legacy. Is like I would really horribly regret coming in here 6 months if I said no to the opportunity, coming back in 6 months and it all going to worse, like to crap, and me walking in going, "Man, I could have saved this place. I could have." Not that it was in a bad spot, but like if I could really have made a difference here, and that's why I sat down and talked to the wife really hard, and I was like, oh, I don't know, do I have time for this? Like, I can probably do 35 hours a week here. It's mainly night sides, so it's just extending out some of the work that I do. And she's like, oh, I think it'd be really good for you to go back and just have that sort of that place. And so I bit the bullet, and coming back has been the hardest and the most rewarding thing I've done I shouldn't say in a while, but like, on a different level, like on that sort of very bartending pillar sort of level. It's been one of the most rewarding things on that.
And so for you coming back and sort of having that type of feeling, what's been the coolest thing you think so far since you've come back here?
The customers. Having the guests back, having some people who I know supported Clive's back before it was cool. Chef Corey from Whole Beast.
Yeah, Corey's awesome.
Yeah, Corey's fantastic. He used to come here in 2009, 2010 and be one of those people on a Saturday night sitting at the bar for 3-4 hours, having Pisco Sours and Fernet and Cokes. He'd bring Shawn down. And Shawn and Michelle, who were starting dating in 2009, when they used to come in here, are now married with a kid, So I think it's that response of, while on a physical level, it's hard to work behind the bar again, going on 40, that response of people going, I'm so happy that you're back. Like it goes back to that people pleaser thing. Like it's that, like people coming back here for some people have come back for the first time in like 5 years, 6 years. They haven't come back since I left, it is a bit of massive ego stroke, but like it's also one of those things is like to have that sort of brand confidence from the consumers is a huge thing. Like having that confidence where someone's willing to just like have that sort of symbiotic relationship and just go, what are you working on? Just give it to me.
I was going to ask, how many people just come in and like get you to make something on the spot?
Lots.
What percentage do you think?
Lots.
Because one thing we Anton and I found when we were in Japan, and we went to Lamp Bar. I don't know if you're familiar with Machito.
No.
Okay. Yeah. He, I think he was named the best bartender in the world in 2015. or it was some very prestigious award. And when we went in there, it was a little speakeasy bar, and they had actually 2 hidden bars on either side of the main room.
Wow.
So like it was like a hidden door. One of them was some luggage that you would push the door back and go through into a whole bar.
So a speakeasy within a speakeasy within a speakeasy.
Yes. And then when you first walked in, there was a mirror right here on the right. And that mirror would slide back and there'd be a whole another bar there. But there was no menu at that bar.
Mm-hmm.
You went in, he would ask you what you liked. And then he would just sort of stand there and think about it for a second. And he had his little notepad. And they were dressed all,
Yeah.
There was a reason why they were wearing what they were wearing. Every bottle was there for a reason. And it was just a very different experience to experience something like that.
But when you walked in, didn't you feel that like that center? Like
I felt like the place knew what it was.
Yeah.
And it was just, everything was exactly how it should be. There was no, it was very calm.
no fuss and no muss.
There wasn't.
Yeah.
No, it was just, it knew what it knew what it wanted to be. That's what it was. And everything was in the place where it needed to be.
Mm-hmm.
It was very, very relaxing. And then just to have him come and the confidence of him, like he was very sort of more, very quiet,
Mm-hmm.
but you could tell like he knows his stuff.
Yeah.
And then he brings it out and then he brings you a drink and explains what it is. And like one of them, I think he took Crown Royale and redistilled it and made his own stuff with it. And then he had like a bitter that he had made with some sake and
Mm-hmm.
and all this stuff. And it was madness. It was crazy.
And that's just the thing is like, again, it goes back to, I think we were talking about it earlier, is like culture, whether it be cocktail, wine, whatever. Cocktail culture isn't built off creativity, it's built off consistency. And that consistency then breeds confidence. And then once you have that confidence in the brand, you know you can go there for absolutely anything. You know that the drinks are always consistently good. Like they're creative, but they're always consistently good. Like you can have a creative drink once and it's great. Next one's not so great. The second visit is horrible. But it's that consistency of awesomeness that you've got to sort of keep. Because then that breeds, like I can walk up to a table now and go, usually drink XYZ, right? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, I got something new for you. And they'll be like, cool. And they're like, you can see them go, well, what is it? I'm like, I'm not going to tell you. And I'll go off and make it and bring it out to them, put them down for them. Like, oh, this is awesome. Like the Averna and Lemon Tonic. Like Corey was in and I'm like, I know you like Fernet and Cokes. I know that you like Pisco Sours. I know you like these drinks. I'm like, you're going to love this Averna and Lemon Tonic because it tastes like a old school sort of Coca-Cola sort of sarsaparilla sort of thing with a lemon twist.
That would be amazing.
And it's just 2 ounces of Averna, top with lemon tonic. Like a bit of lemon. And it's just money. And I'm like, that's as simple as drink and people are just going to eat that up.
And I guess that's because of your expertise. You know what somebody else doesn't know that they don't know.
Yeah.
I guess. You can make that connection maybe.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is like people do want to let go. You just got to build that confidence up in people so that they feel so comfortable with you that they'll say yes to anything. It's the same thing with like sushi, like talking about Japan, like sushi restaurants. You'll go and you'll sit at a sushi bar and you'll talk to the sushi chef and he may give you like 3 very like rudimentary dishes that are very classic, but then you're sort of like, well, where's your weird stuff? And then all of a sudden his eyes will light up and he'll be like, oh, you want weird stuff? Here's some mackerel and here's some sea urchin and here's some, like, he'll give you the tuna roll and the prawns and stuff like that to start.
Yeah.
But then when you start like building that rapport, all of a sudden he's like sliding mackerel to you, sliding some smoked eel, some sea urchin, there you go. And all of a sudden you're sort of building this sort of symbiotic relationship. And it takes a really long time. Like, and that's the thing is like goes back to that, like those years and years of Clives of even when Clives in 2010 became super popular and won awards and all this stuff, it's still work. And I sometimes have to remind myself when I do like new places, whether it be Little Jumbo, FTW, Cafe Mexico, that I sort of have to always take it back to a zero to sort of start again. And I think that's always the key is like Cafe Mexico, great. Yes, I'm running the bar program. I was the general manager, but I've got great people running the bar program and they're making the cocktails. You've got to still build confidence in a whole new myriad of customers because the people who go to Clive's, Little Jumbo, Veneto weren't coming to Cafe Mexico in the beginning. The first couple of months were all old Cafe Mexico clientele who were used to their Tex-Mex and free tortillas and dip and all that sort of stuff. And all of a sudden they're getting like hardcore Durango cuisine and
That place was so different after.
high-end cocktails.
So different. It was amazing.
It's literally one of the things that I regret doing when we rebranded, that we didn't change the brand up from Cafe Mexico. That we didn't change the brand to align more to the direction we're going, especially with Chef Wazé now there. He is doing some epic, like classic, like Mexican dishes. I don't think chimichangas are on the menu anymore because the menu had to get truncated for COVID. He took the opportunity to go, okay, no more chimichangas. And so he's geared it much more towards like traditional Mexican food. Like I know that he goes to Mexico, well, before COVID, obviously, he was going to Mexico 1 or 2 times a year and eating all the Michelin star restaurants in Mexico City and stuff like that, and really experiencing Mexican cuisine on a whole different level. And he is just a phenomenal chef. He is like one of the most talented Mexican chefs I've ever experienced in my whole entire life. His tacos are on point. Everything that he does is on point.
It really did stand out though when we went there, because I'd been to Cafe Mexico before the fire, and I was like, this is not the same restaurant. So it's interesting that you were saying that you wish that like it had been rebranded.
Yeah, I just think it would have been easier because people weren't getting the taco burrito half and half plates and just the Tex-Mex rubbish.
And again, that's expectations, right? Because people would come in with that name,
Yep.
and they would have an expectation. Yeah,
Exactly. Like even when when Clive's rebranded, Clive's was Victoria Jane's for like 20 years. So Victoria Jane's was a pub in this space. And so when they redid it all, like they gutted the room. Can I get a picture for you? Can I jump up and get you a picture? Because I've got a picture. I've got a picture of the original Victoria Jane's.
I can cut this. Yeah. Oh wow. Let's see here. Let's get this in the. If you're not watching the video, we're back now. I've got it up on the video right now. The picture he's talking about.
So this is Victoria Jane's before renovations.
Yeah.
So this is all this back section here. Like it kind of, I could have probably used that. Like it's a very hipster joint. I could have probably worked with that, but they did this big renovation. But then when they renovated, they wanted to get away from this British pub sort of feel, but invited all the old clientele back. And so they all wanted it. So I remember a funny story when I first took the position here. I left Moxie's back on Vancouver and Yates. I was the assistant general manager there. And I came over here. And the wife and I were out one night, and I'm like, you know what? Let's go to Clive's. Check it out. Brought all my friends down, like 6 people right here, and let's check out where I'm going to take over. And we came down, and there was drag racing on the TV with sound. So sound was like right through here with the drag racing going on. And I'm sitting there, and I ordered a cocktail, and it took about 25 minutes to get to me. And I leant over to my wife, and I had a good job at Moxie's. Like it was still Moxie's, but I had a good job there. And I leant over to my wife. I'm like, I've made a fucking horrible mistake. This is not good. And so for the first 6 months, we still played hockey on the TVs with sound, and it was just a place where staff would come and hang out and have nachos and watch the hockey game or the tennis thing. So it was this massive change from Victoria Jane's, which was, as you can see the picture, to this swanky sort of room where they spent a whole bunch of money. And so it was a long and hard process to sort of build that. And Cafe Mexico was very similar too. It was like, okay, so every table on a Friday night, I know I'm going to have to go and explain to them what the menu's like, how it sort of rolls. This is what we do now. This is our margaritas. We don't do them in big witches brews where we just dump in a whole bunch of mixed dough and sweet and sour mix and just scoop it out on ice and then serve it. We do real cocktails and stuff like that. And so I always try and it's a humbling moment when you think that everything you've done in your career would make it easier, and it never is. It's always still freaking hard.
That's always hard. And as far as Clive's here, do you have any things upcoming that you have planned that are going to be in the works, or is this kind of an ever evolving, just sort of natural, organic thing?
My sort of hard date is like the 1st of October through for a big new menu, because the hard thing right now is because obviously we've got single use menus, which means that I can only have so many cocktails. And obviously Clive's is notorious for the book menus. And so I'm trying to eventually get back to that sort of style. The menu will definitely probably secret out like more aligned with what we had at FDW, the fold-out paper sort of style, like a newspaper style menu. But it all depends on how these rules post-COVID sort of go.
Yeah.
Like single-use menus, I'm not going to be spending a bunch of money on single-use menus where we have to throw them away as soon as we think. So like right now it's a gradual burn until October. That winter autumn menu, we'll definitely be keeping the cocktails on tap the way they are, but we'll be bringing back like the hot crock pot cocktails, like the punch bowls we used to do with the crock pots, where you'd have a hot punch, like a hot buttered rum or a spice cider or something like that. That's definitely coming back for winter, and really just gearing the menu back to being that sort of really classic European style hotel bar. Good highballs and classic martinis and stuff like that.
How many items would you say are going to be on the menu then?
Lots.
There's going to be some page turner.
I think it's about like balancing out what is easy to serve and approachable to really geeky and hard. Long-term goal, to be really honest, I'd love to get a martini cart in here. Be Victoria's first martini cart by the table. So cart comes up, you order a martini, gets stirred at the table, poured, done, you walk away. So you pick your gin, you pick your vermouth, get stirred up, served up.
That'd be incredible. I mean, just to think of the people that would come in not expecting that, didn't know, and they see someone over there get it.
Yep.
What do you think they're going to do?
Order it.
Exactly.
So I'd like to do Victoria's first martini cart is a goal for me for the new year. But again, I think it is a slow of evolution, because I kind of, with everything that I do training wise now, it's a little bit of a boiling frog theory, like just a slow increase over time and just keep building up. A lot of people think that I'm a bull in a china shop, which I can be, but I'm trying to negotiate that bull in a china shop and sort of understand where Clive's has been for the last 7 years, but also understanding where we need to go for the next 5 and sort of building it out from there.
And so you have sort of a timeline of where it needs to kind of go, or you have like an idea in mind?
Yeah, I have a rough idea. Like I think leaning into Amaros and bitters again is a big thing for us. Absinthe, obviously. Gins are always going to be good here. Building out a whiskey program that's much more substantial is a big one for me, but I need more space. So if we can get renovations for next year, I'd like to see a little freshen up and some movements towards a bigger whiskey program, which means more space to sit whiskey.
Yeah.
So,
and as far as the food goes, is the food going to change very much?
Yes, I'm working with the chef upstairs, and sort of leaning into. I've actually downloaded something like 25 like European hotel bar food menus. And I'm going to print them all, and we're just going to cherry pick certain things. I'd like to see sardines. I'd like to see rillette. You're always going to have a clubhouse. That's just the way it is. Same with the burger. Doesn't matter if you're a 5-star hotel. There's always a burger on the hot lobby lounge menu. So I'm going to try and sort of cherry pick off like 25 different menus and sort of see what sort of sits there. I think a really good caprese salad's always good. There's a whole bunch of little stuff.
I'd be stoked for the burger, because I have a feeling like whatever burger is here, it's going to be like mind blowing.
It has to be gangster.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're going to be working towards sort of like my goal is that we had Clive's my time, we had Clive's Jace's time. What is Clive's for the next 5 years? To have a hotel lobby bar that is over 10 years old now, still very popular, still very successful. How do we make it more successful and more popular for the next 5 years, so that we don't go into that sort of massive dump that most hotel lobby bars go into, where they're just like, it's a hotel lobby bar. Like, how do you pull yourself back out of that? Oh, it's just another hotel lobby bar. It's just another hotel lobby bar in a 4-star hotel sort of deal. So it's sort of re-engineering about where we want to see ourselves in 5 years.
It was funny. I saw when the patio opened and you popped the bottle.
Oh man, people love my screw ups so bad.
And that's the first time it's ever happened where it exploded?
First time ever. I've done savoring all over the world, hundreds of bottles. And I know where I went wrong with that one.
Yeah. I thought it was funny when I saw it pop up. I love the fact you put it out there and you're just like, this happened.
Well, I think, again, it goes back to, like, I think I posted a blooper the week before and that really resonated with people.
Yeah.
I was doing a quick little cocktail video and I said hot as balls.
Oh yeah, and then you said fuck in there.
Well, the thing is, I didn't notice the fuck.
Yeah.
And my wife told me, she's like, yeah, you said hot as balls, but you said fuck. And I'm like,
I
what?
missed it too watching it actually.
It was 1 o'clock in the morning and I'm rewatching. I'm like, oh, I did. Huh. Okay.
Yeah.
But that really resonated with people too. Like people just seem to love when I screw up. And
I think people like to see that not everything is perfect.
no, never.
Like at the start of this podcast, I screwed up in the very, very beginning of the intro, but I'm just going to leave it in there because I think it's important to actually have that stuff there.
I think it's still a bit authentic and genuine. It's like I've done Zoom calls when my dog's blown up upstairs and you can definitely hear it on the audio. I'm just like, you know what? That's just the way it is. Like a fire truck's gone past my house. I live on Lamson Street in Esquimalt. So it's like the main thoroughfare for like ambulances and fire trucks. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
Even in my basement, you can still hear it. But yeah, I think it's that authentic, genuine. It's like everybody goes, oh, you create such great cocktails. I'm like, yeah, but it's the result of like 10 complete screw ups. Like I screwed up 10 times before this one great cocktail came out. Like it's little bits here and there that people think that I just go, oh, I've got a cocktail idea. Sometimes it happens that way, but like done. Oh, there we go. It's on the menu. And I'm like, and it doesn't happen that way
When
all the time.
when you get an idea, how quickly are you able to arrive at sort of the final destination that you were hoping to achieve? Like once you get an idea,
Pretty quick. Like there's little tweaks real quick. I love that about the team at FTW back in the day because we had our group chat and I'd come up with an idea like in the shower or something like that. And I'd literally message everybody. By the time that we went through all the messages and got to work that day to work, we'd already fleshed out everything and everybody would have picked up ingredients and like brought in tools and we just get there and we'd go done. And so like 4 people just like brainstorm the whole thing, distill it down to one idea and done.
one thing I love that Ine was doing before the pandemic was Sunday Fun Days.
Yeah.
Where they had like a theme on a Sunday. And like the very first one was Godzilla. And then Mike came up with a bunch of cocktails. Mike and Rob and Anton, they had a bunch of cocktails like revolved around Godzilla. Like there was a Mothra, and then whatever the other monsters were, and it was just for that one day.
One day.
And I love the exclusivity of something like that.
Yeah.
Are you going to be doing anything here like that?
Possibly. The hard thing with pop-ups right now is obviously you can't just bring people in, but I do have a friend who's coming in from Portugal. He runs a little bar in Portugal called Ulysses Bar in Lisbon. I think it's one of my favorite bars in Portugal, if not in the world. Like I think it's in my top 5 favorite bars. It's 20 square feet. It's an old cobbler shop, just a skinny little room.
Yeah.
No tables. People sit across from each other, about this far apart, maybe a little bit closer. So if you sit at the doorway, the guests pass the drink down to you. Oh. And then you can stand in the laneway as a seat. He's got 400 bottles on the back bar, which is a huge selection of alcohol for 20
square feet. In that area?
It's 20 square feet this way and 20 square feet that way and 20 feet that way.
Oh.
So it's like to the ceiling. It's in a 700-year-old building or some crazy. He owns the whole building.
So how does he get to the bottles that are way up? Does he have ladder? Okay.
So he has 4 floors above him that he has his apartments, and I go stay with him when he goes. He's got the highest back deck in Lisbon and this crazy amount of cool stuff. But cars still come up the laneway. So you'll be drinking a beer or drinking a cocktail in the laneway, and the laneway is only about my width, 6'5" wide. And then all of a sudden a freaking cargo van will come up the thing, and you'll have to sit up on the ledge and hold tight so that they can get up, and then you sit back down and you lay down. You stand up on in the laneway. But he's coming. He's going to quarantine for 14 days, and he may do a pop up here. Back in the day, we used to do a lot of that sort of single menus. We used to do Homage Cocktail Friday and did Bartenders Saturday. So we did over a space of 18 months something like 125 bars from around the world. We'd take 4 of their drinks off the menu. We'd recreate them just for Friday, and that would be it. Then we did best ofs and a few other ones, but we've done bars from everywhere in the world. I think.
How many different bars do you think you've been to?
If you total?
Yeah, just guess.
I'd say 1,000.
That's so crazy.
Maybe more. Because
do you have a top 3 most memorable?
Oh yeah. For sure. I think Old Man in Singapore is definitely up there.
Why?
One, it was my local.
Okay.
I lived upstairs from it.
Yeah.
But it was just the team, the vibe. I think it's one of the best bars in the world, hands down. The cocktails are fantastic. Very molecular as well, rotovapped and redistilled stuff and all this sort of stuff. And I just love the people there. The team just made you feel like awesome. It was a high-end cocktail bar, speakeasy. So my first visit to Singapore, I didn't know about this bar. And funnily enough, two guys from Montreal opened a place like 3 blocks away in Singapore. And I was on Keong Sac. And so I went and saw my mate from Montreal, and he's like, "Oh, you've got an Old Man, yeah?" And it's been like 4 weeks since I've been. I'm like, "No, what are you talking about?" He's like, "Old Man, you got to go to Old Man." And so I looked it up, and I'm like, and I'm walking back to my house, and I'm like, wait a second, this is in my building, like this is in my hotel building, and it's just a pineapple light hanging above the door, and that's it. No signage. That's just a pineapple light. So I walk in, and I'm like, okay, and I sit down. And start having a drink, and one of the bartenders, it was a quiet Tuesday night or something, and one of the bartenders sat with me, started chatting, and then there was another bartender who I actually eventually hired, sitting like right across from me. Like, he knew one of my mates from Vancouver, so it's all serendipitous,
very
weirdness. Random. And he's sitting there, he's having a drink, and then he turns around and he's like, "You're Shawn Soole, aren't you?" I'm like, "Fuck." I'm like, "Yeah, that's me." And he's like, "Oh, hey." And we became good friends, and he eventually came and worked with me at Misfits at Roxy.
Is that literally what you said in your head when you said that?
Yes, I always do. But I think Old Man in Singapore is just that, it's my special place. It's just a place that, for a high-end speakeasy style bar that plays Guns N' Roses on Friday night, super loud, where you can have you don't drink beer there, you still drink the cocktails. It's packed, usually standing room only, that I can class as my local, is like a very special thing. Like that's a special place.
How much does it add to it, the fact that they just have a little light outside and you could easily walk by and just have, you were living there for a month and didn't know it was there. How much does that add to like the coolness factor or this the experience of it?
To be honest, not much.
Okay.
Not much, because I love taking people there, but it's on the top 50 best Asian bars and stuff like that. Like, people know where it is.
Okay.
It's just that it's a special little spot for me. The staff there are awesome. Andrew Yap, who runs the place, is like this old school Singaporean native who opened it with the guys from Hong Kong, old man in Hong Kong. And he just runs it special. Like, his level of hospitality is just awesome. And so, like, that's just a special spot for me. Same thing with Ulysses Bar in Lisbon. Like, the hard thing with Lisbon was I was there for the Lisbon Bar Show, and I was the keynote speaker for the start of the show. And the problem is that 2 of the best bars in Lisbon that get tons of awards were shut till 11 o'clock both nights. I was there for pop-ups and guest bartenders and stuff. I'm like, yeah, but I just want to come experience your place, and experience it without all the tomfoolery. Like, it's a different sort of space when you do pop-ups and guest bartenders and stuff. And I walked through a lot, and then another 2 bars in Lisbon were shut due to the Lisbon Bar Show, so the staff could go and attend. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm in town for 48 hours. You're killing me. So Ulysses in Lisbon is just great. So Manuel is a Portuguese-born Canadian. So he grew up in Edmonton and Calgary, but he's from Portugal. 20 square feet, really gangster Portuguese beers on tap, like craft beers. And these little setups that you like, a yuzu IPA from Portugal, and you're just like, where am I right now?
Any yuzu, I love anything with yuzu.
and then 400 bottles like Pappy Van Winkle, because he brings so much stuff back from Canada because he's an importer here. So he brings stuff from Alberta back to Lisbon, which have no rules like we have. And you can go in and get a Pappy Van Winkle 21-year-old old fashioned. It costs you a pretty penny, but you can get it. And so it's just this sort of special spot. And most people will be like, I don't understand it, I don't get it. But it is a special spot. And so I think those 2 spots out of everywhere, I'm trying to think of anywhere else that I went to. That
it's amazing, though, with those little bars that seem to exist in other parts of the world, where like these little random tiny spots, you can easily you could be living in the building, not know it's there. Yeah. But like when we were in Japan, the day when we were leaving, we're going back, getting ready to go to the airport, and we're walking down the sidewalk, and there was this little cube building, was all see-through, but it was a bar. They did shoe shines, and it was a bar. So they had one guy doing shoe shines, the other guy was a bartender, and like Anton went in, he got a matcha old fashioned
As you do.
just on the sidewalk in this little thing, and it was like an awesome experience.
And I think cocktails are now starting to progress into the same sort of food. I think has had that for a while. Like you go to a Subway and you get great sushi, or like I think Japan's a special spot. But like in France or in Europe, you like find this little hole in the wall that does great pizza, or like great croissants, or great like ramen. You know, like ramen spots. I think in Tokyo are like this sort of uncategorizable sort of subculture in Japanese cuisine where
that was the first meal we had when we got there.
It's literally just a sliding door and you walk in, and it's a sort of stylish, like it is what it is. It's a little diner style place, and then you get a bowl of ramen and you're like, oh my God, this is the best thing I've ever had in my mouth. That
was our first 2 hours there.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it was.
Just ramen.
Yeah.
So I think cocktails are starting now sort of in certain parts of the world getting to that sort of space. I've had great experiences in San Francisco, great spots in London, just memorable spots. I've gone everywhere and had some great spaces. I think Lisbon and Singapore sort of resonate with me right now because it's been the last year that I've sort of done those sort of locations. Like I had some great bars in Bangkok, although it was a pain in the ass to get around in Bangkok. I had some great bad experiences in Bangkok as well, but I think it's a personal level. Like when we got best bar here, everybody came in and was like, well, you're the best bar, so can I have a pint of Canadian? I'm like, well, what your definition of best bar is and what my definition of best bar is very, very different. And so I think it has to be a personal thing. And some people aren't going to like what you do. Some people are going to love what you do. But it is a personal thing about how you do it. But I think you also have to stick to your guns and stick to that mission statement and that mantra. And I always like to try and live. There's always black and white in the industry, but you try and live in the gray. And the gray is about this big for this much black and white. So you try and you're going to have rules. You're going to have like the way the door works and how to seat people and what drinks you make and so on and so forth. But there's always that gray area, and you live in that gray area.
And with COVID now, has it shrunk the gray area, expanded it, or?
Oh,
I feel like it may have shrunk it, eh?
To a degree. I think the definition of what brands were for restaurants and bars before COVID has definitely changed post-COVID. In a relatively big way. I don't think if you're a restaurant and you didn't do takeout during COVID, I think your brand has been detrimentally affected.
Can I say one thing about that?
Yeah.
My feeling after talking with some people that own restaurants here, the places that were already doing takeout pre-COVID, they've crushed during COVID because I think people are already thinking them as takeout restaurants. But the places that were not takeout previously and had to adapt to that, they haven't seemed to have done as well. And I think people already were associating these places like Wrap and Roll or The Hive, and they're doing better than they've ever done, pretty much.
I think yes and no, because you've got to adapt. Because the thing with the restaurants and bars restaurants mainly, but the restaurants that try to pivot and do takeout, they did it in this sort of sense that like trying to still hold on to that old brand, and they didn't fully go into it. Like for me, I kind of look at it and I talk to Anton about it with sushi. Like sushi's a great one. It's like, why not do a quick video using these sort of cameras of the sushi chef making that one dish and then put a QR code that goes straight through to YouTube on the box when it gets delivered.
That'd be sick.
And someone can go QR code, watch the YouTube video, flick it up to AirPlay to your big screen, which pretty much everybody has AirPlay on their big screen these days. And literally while you're eating the sushi chef is making the thing. Same thing with cocktail to go packs. Why not have the bartender make the cocktail? You have a recipe card with a QR code, and you can literally watch Mike Norberry make a freaking...
Which I think they did that.
I hope they did, because I gave them the freaking gold.
That was done.
So I think that's the thing is like the evolution of consumer convenience in the way of online shopping, on the way of online ordering, has now jumped the shark. And I hate to say jump the shark in a positive way, but like I was just talking to my mate about it. It's like in 1980s, video dating was gauche, was like socially like cringed upon. Oh, you're video dating? Gross. In the 2000s, Tinder is like everybody's Tindering, everybody's bumbling, everybody's doing whatever dating app there is out there now. it jumped a point where people were like, this is acceptable. Like, for you to hook up on Tinder is fine. Online ordering is the same thing. This was going to come. Online ordering from all restaurants, and I'm maybe saying 5%, maybe no, but all restaurants was coming in the next 2 to 5 years. COVID just like jacked that process back into a point where if you're not doing online ordering and doing a creative way of doing online ordering, like if you're doing family style meals in your restaurant to the customer, but you can't do that to go, you're missing what the consumer is going to be doing in the next 2 years. Like, and if we have another lockdown, you're really screwed. And so you can't hold on to this sort of dream of, this is what my brand is, this is what the industry's like. That industry's gone. That brand is gone. The industry's broken horribly, like in the worst possible way. Our industry is horribly broken. It's the fact that lockdowns closed restaurants and bars down within a month. You know, like you can have a restaurant and bar that has a solid brand in any city that has been around for 10 to 15 years, and a bad month can cripple you.
Well, I saw that about that one place in New York, and I forget what it was called. Been open for 20 years, crushing.
There's 83-year-old restaurants going out of business. You know, so you either have to adapt to the new world or you're going to die. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Like I talk to a lot of restaurateurs and a lot of restaurant managers. I'm like, well, why didn't you do takeout? They're like, oh, well, our food isn't takeoutable. I'm like, you do pizza and pasta, man. Like, of course you can do pizza and pasta to go. Like, oh, it doesn't fit with our brand. I'm like, your brand doesn't exist the way it does anymore.
Yeah.
Like, and it's not going to exist in the next 18 months as the world has changed. Like online ordering, the 2Ds, the Uber Eats, the DoorDash, that is becoming more and more prevalent because there's still a lot of people out in BC, not talking about the rest of the world, like just BC, who don't want to come inside. I have customers and guests who are so happy with the patio because now they can come because they will not come and drink inside.
Yeah, I'm one of those people that doesn't really want to be inside.
And that's BC, where we have like minimal cases. We're not talking about New York or San Francisco or Arizona or Florida. Like we're talking about BC. So if you're not adapting to that and figuring out how to do cocktail kits, our cocktail kits at Pagliacci's that Solomon sort of brainstormed and me and him sort of put together, killed it during like the takeout sessions. Like we were just doing swag, like tons and tons of swag. Negroni kit, gin, sweet vermouth, Campari, 2 Campari glasses, some Negroni glasses, like Negroni sunglasses, like a freaking Aperol Spritz scarf with the Aperol Spritz kits, everything. So if you're not sort of looking at where your consumer's coming from and what they're wanting from your brand, because that's really what I think that what COVID opened us up to is like, what is the consumer asking of your brand? Not what are you willing to give to the consumer? Like, what are they asking for you right now? They want to have your food at home. Like let's use Olo as an example. Brad out on the farm talking about the greens, and we can do this all like you do all your videos on these cameras. These cameras are awesome. Like talking about the greens that are going into your salad would absolutely blow up. People would
I want
love
to talk
that
to Brad.
stuff.
Like when they were closed down, I guess for renovations or something during COVID, and I saw the paper up, I was worried that it was because I knew they had the farm going and all this stuff, and I'm like, no, but I was so happy when they're reopened, and I do want to talk to Brad.
So like I think you've just got to start getting creative about how do you put your message across that's deep down in your soul across the consumer in a completely different playing field. And we're not talking about like a different baseball diamond. We're talking literally a different sport. Like online ordering and eating at home and being away and being comfortable being away from COVID and stuff is a different sport than we're used to. And how do you play in that different league of all of itself? And so like coming up with creative ways, I think video is underutilized. I think social media is super underutilized.
Well, again, how many people are putting up even just one piece of content a day for their business?
Fuck. I wish more. I don't understand people. Like I've had so many conversations with people who are just like, oh, I was told 3 pieces a week is good. I'm like, no. 3 pieces a week will just get blown into the algorithm somewhere and will just disappear. And I'm talking like when I have those sort of conversations, that's with big brands. We're talking about multinational, multi-million-dollar companies where they're like, well, the other whiskey brands only post twice a month and we're doing it 3 times a month. I'm like, once a day. And they're like, no, that's too much. I'm like, are you trying to attract the 25 to 34-year-old demographic? They're like, yes. That's why we did a radio ad. I'm like, when? Oh, like 11:30 in the morning. I'm like, okay, so everybody's already gone to work, so no one's listening to radio. If people listen to radio at all in the mornings, unless it's a really good like morning show. I was like, so you're trying to chase this demo with this sort of this sort of strategy. I'm like, that makes no sense whatsoever. You want to chase 25 to 34-year-old males in professional pieces, but you only want to post 3 times a month. Yep, that makes no sense to me whatsoever. Once a day. Oh, that's too much. I'm like, you can do easily once a day. It's very easy. You have a huge budget, a huge marketing budget. You can do once a day.
Well, it's like you were saying with your stuff, you strip out a bunch of content from each thing, and you can have like 5 pieces of content from one talk or one episode, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is it goes back to like, how do people absorb your information?
Yeah.
Like I take screenshots of tweets and put them up on my Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Like the content's still there. I write a piece of copy that I was doing the last couple of weeks. I've been trying some new sort of stuff on Twitter because they've got the quiz, like the picking of multiple choice quiz. So and then it tells you what the ranking is like. So on Clive's, I'm like, okay, so what's your favorite gin-based mixed cocktail? And then the quiz will come through and it's 60% aviation, 20% white ladies, so on and so forth. Screenshot that, put it through Canva to square it off, up on Clive's Facebook page. What's your favorite gin cocktail? Comment below. And then bunch of comments. And so I think people underestimate how people digest information in this day and age. And they don't look at what the consumer's doing. Instead of they look at how they see things.
Yeah.
And so like that quality is subjective sort of mentality. People love videos. People will like see that screenshot of that tweet. We got a ton of engagement on that video, on that post, and it's just a graph of what things. And I'm like, oh, what's your favorite bourbon? Oh, this one, and like it just engages the consumer on a different platform altogether. After doing that already on Twitter,
exactly. And people just think about you just took a screenshot and put it up, like, and people are happy to give you that information because they're super passionate about it. But it just takes, again, something as simple as a screenshot.
100%.
Just put that up.
It's a document over create. So like I think people get tied up on like creating. And as soon as you start thinking about how do I create content that's going to resonate with people, you start losing the fact that certain things will resonate with people on a completely different level. There's stuff that I do that I'm like I post and I'm like, I never really care about likes or stuff like that. That's not really my gratification matrix.
It can't be. I don't think it can be at all.
No, especially nowadays.
No, it's useless.
Like I talked about, I did an article about influencer marketing the other week, which I still think influencer marketing is still a very viable strategy for marketing. Like Mike, when he was doing his cocktail a day thing on IGTV.
Oh, that was amazing.
I hooked him up with a few brands that he did cocktails with, and those brands actually got a little bit of a kickback on it. I think influencer marketing is a very specific marketing thing because people saw it as an easy way to get ROI instead of actually treating it like an actual marketing strategy.
Yeah.
They were like, oh, you have 10,000 followers. I will let you have dinner at my restaurant. And that just breeds an entitlement mentality and this whole influencer job description, blah, 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 blah. It's almost like entrepreneurship. Like I've only in the last like 3 to 4 months actually started calling myself an entrepreneur. It was like this dirty word that I was just like, I can't, I'm a hospitality business person.
Yeah.
But I think with social media and stuff, people start overthinking it. And so I do social media for a few people and I'm just like, okay, well, listen, look at every day like a bucket. You fill those buckets up with a theme. So it'd be cocktail of the day, spirit of the day, your little advice section. Your advice sections, I've already got 10 videos of advice that you did 2 years ago that I'm going to reuse that. That's 2.5 months worth of content. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, we only put that out on a Monday. Every Monday, you have 10 pieces. That's 2.5 months. All of a sudden, 10 pieces of content on a certain theme is very, very freaking easy for people. You know, like we've been talking about Ine and Nubo a lot. Sake Sunday. Just do 10 videos talking about sake. It's 2.5 months worth of content. That's really, really easy. So you start documenting and really just thinking about like what people want to see. Like they want to see you get your brand new vegetable delivery
Oh yeah.
from the farm.
100%.
Like just a nice shot, Chef White's, like even if it's got a little smudgy on it, like with a big ass like plate of tomatoes and basil and stuff, people lose their mind on that. You know, so like just document everything. If you're prepping fish, you're breaking down a fish, time lapse that sucker, done. People will love that stuff, and so like that sort of mentality of documenting. Like I've done a lot of videos here where it's just me prepping my smoked trident or me prepping a cocktail. Super easy, and it resonates.
I think it's reframing people's mindset though, especially a lot of people that aren't used to doing social media. Like they're just used to like again, wrap and roll.
Mm-hmm.
Like they do everything in house.
Yeah.
They soak their chickpeas every single day for 24
wow.
hours or overnight. Sorry. They do all like the meat they process in house, the chicken, they deal with it all in house. And they're just used to doing that. But I'm like, you need to show people this because they don't see that. And all this effort, but it's just, again, it's something they're used to doing.
Well, I think it's the change in what people deem social media as, because the thing is that marketers took social media and started making it super polished and this sort of faux message, this sort of non-authentic copy, and this sort of like inspiration for the day, and you're miserable. Like I think Black Mirror, and there's a whole bunch of like parody videos of people on YouTube now that do like Motivation Monday and then just like I'm miserable. But I think that authentic original story, and I try and like get people back to that, and they're like, but why would I post a picture of my distiller like stirring mash? I'm like, because people freaking love that stuff. Like that's what people want to see.
Do a boomerang or something.
Yes, do a boomerang where you smash a bottle and like just put it everywhere.
100%.
I put glass everywhere when I did that. But that's the thing, is like I was like, I want to do a boomerang this day, sort of christening the patio, and then that happened, and like Alana, who took the boomerang, she's like, are you going to use that? I'm like, message it to me, I'll use it. And it became a post. It became a like post on my personal Instagram.
That was probably better than it going proper, right?
100%.
You know what I mean?
100%.
Yeah.
You know, and then that's just the thing, is like there's going to be some stuff. I do a lot of gift stuff, like take in like 8 to 10 photos of creating a cocktail in 10 photos and then turn it into a gift video with a bit of music in the background. And so I think people need to get over this sort of, people are done with like seeing this over the top, well lit like food shots on tables, because it looks like an ad, and people just go flick, flick. Same thing with stories. Like stories are super underutilized, I think, in most brands and restaurants. Like, and because the thing is, some people won't go through your wall. I've had people tell me, the best one I think, I've had people tell me that they don't want to mess up their wall because their wall looks a certain way.
Yeah.
I'm like, you understand that no one looks at your wall, right? Like no one. Like people see your photos in the algorithm splitting off like 2 days ago, maybe 10 minutes ago. Stories are a really big thing. People go through the stories because that's at the top of the page. Boom, 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 boom. You can go through everybody's stories. I'm like, you're just overthinking stuff. This
is so true, by the way, because on my account, organically with these podcasts, I put up a little preview video, and it just happened to be the fact that every third one was the thing. So now it's a whole line in a row of people, and it's like there's this kind of this pressure in my head where I want to maintain that. But like you're saying, no one in general, or a very small minority of people that see your stuff, are going to your actual account and scrolling down. And that's so important to keep in mind, because even what you're saying, it's even playing in my head.
And if you want to really see how that works out, just go and do a link tree or a Shorby on your URL.
I have to do one of those.
Yeah. And see how many people click on that actual URL. Really shows you how many people actually go to your page. Like if you want to throw that out, like literally do an edit job tonight and then take a photo of yourself just banged out, exhausted, headphones on, saying like just finished editing 3 episodes or Shawn Soole's episode, and he swore a lot, so I had to put a lot of beeps in. Absolutely exhausted, and post that. And people were like, oh, it's 11:30 at night, and Dallas is just finishing up editing Shawn's episode because he swore too many times.
Yeah. Dude, there's such a lot of different mentality. I think that's just broken. And like you've been saying, like people have an idea, I think, how they think it is, but they don't actually look at their behavior. And those two things don't correlate. They're just there's a big difference. Total side tangent.
Yeah, of course.
You mentioned before about the real magic at some places is talking to the chef and getting like the weird things that they have or whatever. Is there a cocktail that stands out to you that you've either made or had that's like super weird?
Oh yeah.
Like a pinnacle one.
Yep. Nutmeg and clove in Singapore again. A mackerel cocktail.
Ooh.
And I like mackerel a lot.
I wouldn't like this cocktail, I don't think.
Yeah, I like mackerel a lot, like a lot.
Yeah.
But this was just super briny. A really hot room as well, obviously Singapore. Not a lot of air conditioning.
Mhm.
And so a small of a sweatier room, and the cocktail just didn't chill down enough to take that edge off that briny salinity.
Yeah.
You know, like if it was super, super chilled, I'd be like, oh, okay. Like if it was nitro, like liquid nitrogen in chilled or something like that, I'd be like, oh, okay, well, I'm good. This is nice and chilled. It's taking that salty salinity off the edge. But yeah, I would have to say that cocktail was just like, this is something I probably wouldn't have again. Like even for a lover of like briny fish, that was like just a little too much.
So one thing we talked about in the one with Anton and Mike is mayonnaise in a cocktail. Have you ever done that?
Doable,
because it was a joke. Anton got triggered by the fact that I wanted Mike to do they called it the tapeworm.
Okay.
And make a cocktail with mayonnaise, and Anton said there's no way to make it taste good. And
there's always ways. I
thought it was hilarious. I love triggering Anton, and he went off about it, and it was funny. But I'm wondering if you've ever done that.
I haven't done it, but it would be what I would do is I would put it in a food processor, probably gin, blitz it to emulsify the hell out of it, then sous vide it for a couple of hours to really like get some flavor in there, and then freeze it and fat wash it basically.
So it's a hell of a lot of work.
Yeah, you'd literally want a clear product at the end.
Yeah.
But you would take a lot of the fats and a lot of the flavor out of the mayonnaise and put it in the gin.
Okay.
So I think anything's possible, and possible just takes a little bit longer.
Yeah.
That's how I live my life. So I think blitzing it, emulsifying it, sous vide it for like maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours at about 75 degrees, and letting that just like really like, because the mayonnaise will probably separate with the alcohol breaking down the proteins in the mayonnaise, the egg proteins. But really, when you think about it, when you break down what mayonnaise is, it's really just olive oil and egg yolks. It's really that, and with some seasoning. So oil is dissolvable in alcohol for fat washing. We use egg yolks and flips.
I love egg yolks in a drink.
Egg yolks and flips.
Egg white.
Egg whites. We use whole eggs and flips. So it's doable. It would be doable. And then you would just freeze it, and then the fats in the mayonnaise would freeze. The alcohol wouldn't.
Yeah.
And then you'd put it through a coffee filter a couple of times. I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to make this for you this weekend. I will make you a mayonnaise infused gin, and I will take it over to Anton just for you.
That would make me so happy.
And I will film it for you and tag you in it when he makes me a mayonnaise gin martini.
I would love it. You would make my week for this.
It would be pretty clear. Like I think the mayonnaise would separate really well.
And the fact that you just spent like 3 or 4 minutes talking about this, you made me so happy.
It's doable. It's very, very doable.
Thank you. Dude, so
Anton's screwed now.
It's going to happen. Your books.
Yeah.
So you said I mean, 2 are out, and you said there's 3 and 4?
So 2013, I wrote my first cocktail book called Cocktail Culture with Nate, who was my bartender here. That was all about Victoria's cocktail culture.
Yep.
And 2018, September 2018, because it was a really quick turnaround. I went to 12 different publishers, and asked to do a Canadian cocktail book. Similar to Cocktail Culture, but like a Canada-wide version. 10 said no. Well, 10, 11 said no. They were like, nope, not our cup of tea. Canada's too much of a small market. Can't sell in the US. No. And then I found a publisher friend of mine in the UK Mixolaney, and they've done books with Gary Reagan, Salvatore Calabrese, Dal DeGroff, very well-known cocktail historians themselves, Anastasia and Jared. Jared Miller is actually the head distiller at Sipsmith Gin.
Mm.
So very, very well-known. They have a little publishing company on the side called Mixolaney, and they said yes. But I had a deadline, and that was from September 2018. I had to have it done by March 2019. Obviously, I didn't get it done by March because I was wrangling 150-something bartenders to get it done. And so we released it in September, October. I actually released it in Singapore before I came home. So Great Northern Cocktails came out. And so, the telephone's off. Who would be calling right now? And so we published it. It did very, very well. Obviously, just before Christmas, it was really good. And then COVID, we were just about to start kicking off like a bit of a book tour, and then that sort of killed all that. But obviously, being a book about bartenders and cocktails, it does need to get updated. And so I reached out to them about a month and a half ago, and I was like, okay, so I really think, because it's difficult, you sort of think about it, it's like, I released this book a year ago, and now I want to start doing the second one, and they want it out in May this time. So like that's a much truncated timetable, but I'm like, okay, well, if I'm going to do this, well, let's double down and do it. But before that, I started my BC Spirits cocktail book, which was a cocktail book with cocktails from the distillery. So I've got 59 distilleries from across the province.
Wow.
My photographer is Nick Hallam, who is Nickasaw on Instagram. Does really epic black background, very brightly colored cocktail pics. And so he's always been a really big advocate for BC Spirits, like in general, not just me. But I was like, okay, well, you do the photos, and then I'll self-publish. And then I reached out about Great Northern, because I started getting close to finishing up BC Spirits. And I'm like, okay, well, I got to start thinking about Great Northern Cocktails, because we'll be 2 years apart by this time next year. If we release in September next year, it'll be 2 years between publications, and that's a good time difference to do the second book. And they were like, yeah, we're going to need you to do that by May. I'm like, oh, okay. So I got to have it into them by March for May. So basically, I'm going to have 2 books coming out in a period of about a month and a half, 2 months.
Oh, wow.
One's going to be very specific to BC Spirits, BC Distilleries. It's sort of like a guidebook / cocktail book. My goal is for people to pick up the book of the distillery, pick up the product, and then make the cocktail that's in the book. So it's a bit of a guidebook / cocktail book. And I got about 59 out of 72 distilleries in the book. So I'm pretty happy, and I'm self-publishing that so I can do it every year. So as soon as this one comes out, I'll have to start adding for next year and cracking on for the next year. So
do you think you would add on more distilleries? Like, would it go up from 59?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that as new ones open, the hard thing with BC distilleries in general is that they're not necessarily gun shy, but they're always wondering what's in it for the other person to a degree. So it's like a couple of distilleries just didn't get back to me. A couple of distilleries were like, oh, well, we don't really understand the process, and do we send you product? Do you need product? I'm like, well, no, we're just going to mock up the cocktails. Like, we can make cocktails look like cocktails with gin from anybody. I don't need bottle shots. I didn't want to do bottle shots or anything like that. So there's, I would probably say, like, right now there's about 6 to 7 distilleries that I would have loved to have in this edition. But I feel as soon as I have this edition out, they'll be like, oh, well, we wanted to be in that. I'm like, well, check your emails and your Instagram accounts and your Facebook accounts and everywhere else that I try and chase you down. So I'm hoping every year that it'll keep increasing as the industry increases. Same thing with Great Northern Cocktails. Like, that book is my love letter to the Canadian bar industry. So it's always about, like, my publisher literally had to pull cocktail recipes out of me because I didn't want any of my personal cocktail recipes in it. There's no, like, Shawn Soole section or anything like that where it's like a third of the book is me. It was literally 3 cocktail recipes that were like classics for me that she pulled out of me to, like, put in the book. And I was like, well, it's not really about me. It's about the 130 135 bartenders, 150 bartenders I have in the book. So I'm hoping that will keep growing as well into a sort of a tome every 2 years of like brand new bartenders, which is a lot of work because it's not taking the same bios from each bartender that was in it the first time. So it's easy to get new bartenders on board. You should do a group email and you go like make a receipt and bang, 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 away you go. But then I've got to go back to every individual bartender that's already in the book and then send them back their bio and recipe. I'm like, are you still happy with this? Do you want to change it? Have you changed up jobs? Have you changed up like brand ambassadorships? Do you want to change the recipe of the cocktail? And then, of course, that just sets up a whole other set of work on top of the new bartenders. So between Victoria, Okanagan, and Vancouver, I think I've got something close to another 25 bartenders just for the West Coast.
Oh, wow.
Before I even go to Edmonton, Calgary, Ottawa, which I didn't have Ottawa in this edition. Ottawa wasn't in this edition because I didn't have anyone that came and like sparked. Saskatoon is still pretty small, but I've got like 10 new bartenders for Saskatoon. I have 10 new bartenders for Winnipeg. Ottawa is a whole new beast. Quebec City is a whole new beast. Montreal, maybe about 10 as well. So I've got like 100 new bartenders for this copy of the book.
That's crazy.
So,
and you've got an Indiegogo up, or one of those things for one of the books, right?
BC Spirits Cocktail book, because I'm self-publishing, that's coming out of my own pocket. So already I've paid for the photos and the editing myself. And then it's going to go over to Frisian Press, and Frisian Press is going to publish it. And so they're really excited because the pictures are really, really good. Like the designer, I sent some pictures over, the designer's like, I'm salivating. I just want like to lay this book out like perfect. And so I have got an Indiegogo campaign, which I'm hoping will be the only time I have to do it, because I'm hoping that I can take the sales from the first edition, pays for the second edition, and so on and so forth. But yeah, I've got an Indiegogo campaign going for that right now to try and cover some of the publishing costs, because it is a passion project. It's a massive passion project. And for all the BC Spirit stuff that I've done and continue doing, it's put me in my wife hates this because it's put me in the hole for about $12,500, because if I do big tastings, I rarely have time to reach out to distilleries to get a response. So I just buy stuff. So like, I think I laugh now because my second episode, I think, was absinthe. You know what you shouldn't do when you do a BC Spirits podcast is do absinthe as the second thing, because most absinthe is around about $50 to $60 a bottle. Yeah. And then you got to do 7 of them. So your second episode should never be absinthe.
That's on the second episode. That's not like you're 30 in and we're going. No. This is number 2.
And number 2, we did absinthe, and I did with Soul. We brought the absinthe fountain from upstairs at Pagliacci's, sat upstairs in the main office, and like tasted a whole bunch of absinthe from BC. The other thing is, like, I don't really need 15 coffee liqueurs in my house right now. Like, while I love a good Black Russian, at the end of the day, I'm not going to drink them on a regular basis. So when I did the coffee liqueur episode, I ended up having like 12 coffee liqueurs. Same thing with limoncello. Like, I don't need 7 bottles of limoncello in my house, but I do now have 7 bottles of limoncello in my house. You know, like the highlights of those sort of tastings is the whiskey and the gin, because I can use that in cocktails and make a gimlet or just drink whiskey neat.
What the hell's a gimlet?
Oh, gin and lime cordial.
Okay.
It's legit.
It's good?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I'm a lazy bartender.
But you've just got an insane collection of stuff at your house now.
My wife counted it off because I did a big Fever Tree project at the start of this year, which I did craft distilleries from across Canada and paired them with tonic, ginger beer, ginger ale, and ginger beer and ginger ale. And they got like orange ginger ale and a smoked ginger ale and a whole bunch of different things. But I had all these rums and whiskeys and gins and everything from across the country. I think in February and March, my lovely wife did a count, and I had 380 bottles in my collection. I think I'm probably kicking well over 400 now. Some stuff moves real quick, like gins and whiskeys and stuff.
Do you have it like nicely displayed, or is it just kind of like shoved wherever there's space?
It's getting to the stage where it's shoved everywhere. My kitchen, because I'm very lucky that in my house in Esquimalt, I have a suite downstairs, and we don't rent it out. So it's my office.
Oh, amazing.
So I have two rooms that are my offices. Plus, if you look at my videos, I always have a massive bank of bottles behind me and antique shakers and stuff. But my whole kitchen is full of spirits from the East Coast. So rums from Nova Scotia, random gins from Quebec, like just crazy stuff that I'm just never going to get through all this. This is insane. And so, yeah, I'm kicking about over 400 products in my house right now.
That's hilarious.
At one stage, I had a fridge full of Fever Tree tonics and everything, but that's slowly been chipped away. You do yourself a gin and tonic at the end of the night and sit up on the couch and relax with the girls.
And you mentioned you have vintage shakers.
Yeah.
How have shakers changed over the years? Have they?
Yeah, to a degree. Like,
and what do the different shapes do when you're using them?
Oh, don't believe in all the hype when it comes to the scientific bullshit.
No, I'm just asking. Like, it doesn't do much?
No, because the thing is that you got your classics are cobbler, your Parisian, and your Boston. Your Boston's what you see behind us with just the small tin, large tin. Mm-hmm. It's usually small glass, large tin, and you shake it.
And with the shaking motion, is it kind of like a signature of the bartender the way they do it? That's what it is, right?
Yes.
Because like in Japan, I notice a lot of people are way out in front.
Yep.
And then here, a lot of people do it to the side.
Yeah. So it comes down to the sign. Okay, so the science of the Japanese shake is hilarious because I can't remember who developed it, but I remember sitting on a seminar and he's like, so I remember sitting in a seminar and no, I'm not scientific in any way, shape, or form. He's like, now imagine when you're shaking a cocktail Japanese style that the water molecules are cubes. I'm like, okay, I'm no scientist, but water molecules are never cubes. They're always circle. Like, that's what molecules are. They're a sphere. And he's like, yes, but imagine if they're cubes. I'm like, but they're not. So your whole theory of Japanese shaking of the sort of like...
Yeah, that's what it was.
It doesn't make sense. Your whole aim, like, everybody's got their own shake. Like, I do, if it's egg whites, I do the big lumberjack. I got massive long arms, so I do the lumberjack, like chunk to try and get that emulsification.
Out the front as far as you can.
As far as I can. When it's egg whites, just trying to get that foam, get that emulsification, just massive, like lumberjack, trying to chaw down a tree. If it's a simple, like, sidecar or something, sans egg whites, I'll do the up and down, the up and down, the up and down. But the real thing is that you should shake it till your arms hurt. You should shake it till your arms hurt, till the tin is cold. Just to shake it as cold and and the perfect dilution. Like, people say, are you listening to the shake? I'm like, no, I just bang it out. And then I feel like when the ice is starting to break down, it's getting chipped away, the weight in your hand changes, and then you crack it and away you go. So, but like, every bartender's got their shake. Like, you got the you got the 1, 2, 3, the 1, 2, 3. But really, at the end of the day, it's the end game is like, just make it cold, just make it well diluted, and away you go. Like, there is no real science behind it. If you've got really wet, crappy hotel ice, which we're lucky we don't have here, don't shake it as hard. Like, just go. It's going to get really cold, really diluted real quick. If you've got Hoshizaki, like inch by inch ice cubes or cold draft inch by inch, you're going to have to shake that sucker hard and long. Like, you're really going at that because that ice just doesn't break down. It doesn't chip away. It stays as cubes. It doesn't dilute because it's meant to be a solid inch by inch chunk of ice. Mm-hmm. And so as dilution happens, chill happens. So you really need to shake that sucker for a while to get dilution down. Same thing with stirring. Like, those inch by inch ice cubes, everybody's like raving about them, but I hear about like carpal tunnel syndrome in the arms and the elbows from shaking these massive weights. Like, those cubes aren't light, and you do 7 or 8 of those in a shaker every night, and you do 500 times that, it's a beast. And so same thing with stirring. You got to be very wary of like your cold draft ice cubes, like how long you have to stir that sucker for.
Is there something that comes to mind as far as like a key thing universally that would be good for a cocktail, that would go into a good cocktail?
In an ingredient wise? Anything.
First thing that comes to mind.
I've been really in love with really like dissecting spirits as of late. As cocktail prices go up, we seem to be staying at the same level of spirit quality. Mm-hmm. So like culturally all over the world, like as a cocktail culture sort of grows up, prices sort of increase, which as they should. There's a lot of prep, a lot of care, a lot of labor that goes into these things. But I kind of feel like if you're going to charge $15 for a Manhattan, that Manhattan better not have an entry-level rye in it or an entry-level Canadian whiskey in it. It better have something that like your profit, like as prices go up, your profit margin can stay really, really like go up with it. But you can always like take a niche back and still make a solid like contribution and a solid profit margin by making a better drink. My argument's always, and I made this argument back in Moxie's back in the day, do I want someone to have a $12 drink, or do I want someone to have a $16 drink? And this is 10 years ago, but do I want someone to have a $16 drink, or do I want someone to have two $12 drinks? I'm always going to want someone to have two $12 drinks. And so I did this. I moved from Polar Ice and Lambs in the Well at Moxie's, and I moved to Stolik Shania and Havana Club. And obviously I picked a classic vodka martini, and I picked a classic mojito, and I made it with Lambs, I made it with Havana Club, I made it with Stoli. Same recipes, same stir time, like everything was the same. Put it in front of the owners, blind tasted them. I was like, which would you have a second one of? And they're like, this one and this one. I'm like, well, that's Stolik Shania and that's Havana Club. The difference between price of those two bottles is 50 cents. I'm like, so you've already said to me that you would have a second mojito made with Havana Club. Wouldn't you prefer to have a Havana Club in the Well so you get a second drink instead of having that cheaper Lambs that you think you're making money, and you might make an extra, let's be really honest, like maybe $50 to $100 in the year out of that, having that product on your well? Or do you want that second drink? You want that $25 per head spend instead of the $12 per head spend? And like, okay, change it over. I'm like, kickbacks, like company kickbacks, all that stuff doesn't matter anything if you can't get that second and third drink out of a customer.
How do you deal with someone if they've never been in for a cocktail and somebody brand new is coming in and they don't really know what they like or anything? Do you have any advice for someone in that situation? I
was going to say mock them openly. The funny thing is that we've had through here, like I have some great memories in this room, because this room really, for me, changed the way I saw cocktails. We've had 19-year-old kids come in here for their first legal drink and order a Zazarak. And you're like, well, but you should be at the Strath having like some sort of sugary, sweet, lychee, peachy, crappy thing. I think the thing is understanding like how people have grown up and where their head's at. It's like people say, I don't like gin. I'm like, well, you just had a bad experience with gin. Like you're just having a good gin, like gin in a cocktail, especially a shaken, like served up cocktail, like an Aviation, White Lady and stuff. The gin is a drying element. It's not a flavor element per se. Like you can still taste the gin, but like if you made it with vodka, it'd be too sweet. It'd be boring. With gin, it gives you complexity and dryness. You don't actually hit this like massive juniper bomb, or you just taste Tanqueray. And like you don't like gin because you had a bad experience with it. Same thing with tequila, same thing with whiskey, all these sort of things. So again, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. It's like confidence building and building that confidence up in someone and having them trust you that anything you offer to them is going to be good. And also as a bartender, you have to have humility in the fact that you may not make a drink that someone likes, and you have to comp it, and you're not going to keep everybody happy. So when people say I don't like gin, can I swap out this product with gin? I'm like, okay, cool, I can do that for you, but how about I just make you a gin version? If you don't like it, I'll comp it, we'll make a vodka cocktail, you'll be happy with it, but just try it. And they're like, okay.
I'm so against people like subbing out items just because they think they don't like it. Like there's a reason why the person making the thing put it in there.
Yes.
And unless there's like a dietary reason that you can't eat something, I'm kind of like, because I used to do this. I used to like, hey, can you take that out of my dish?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, now you're not getting the intended of, it's not what it was intended to be.
Yeah, and I think that's the hard thing sometimes. Like, oh, I want to modify the dish, but then I don't like the dish when it comes out.
Exactly, and then it leads to a possible bad review.
Yeah. Exactly. And so like for here, we used to do the Clover Club, which was like always the most popular, like entry level, easy, like 2 ounces of gin, raspberry syrup, lemon juice, egg whites, shake it. It's fluffy. It's raspberry. It's gin. And people will be like, oh, I want vodka in it. I'm like, yeah, but if you have vodka in it, it's going to be too sweet. The gin dries out balances out the raspberry. And sometimes I would just keep gin in there. And I would shake it and I'd strain it and I'd send it out. And then a couple of sips in, I'm like, oh, so what do you think? Oh, this is the best drink I've ever had. I was like, just so you know, I made it with gin. And they're like, oh, I never knew gin could taste like this. And obviously sometimes that backfires and it goes back to that sort of like bullshit bartender ego. But like you sort of sometimes have to push people. It's like a little bird on the ledge. Like it may not want to fly, but then like you push it off the ledge and it'll fly. But I think that's the thing is like you got to find this happy medium of like, oh, you don't like gin cocktails, you don't like what we have on the menu. That's great. Like for us here, we have our house vodka cocktail, which is one of George's, who was a long-time server here, which was just vodka, lychee liqueur, peach liqueur, lemon juice, shaken strained, super simple, flavorful as hell. And for the people you don't want to have a fight with, or like it's a busy night and you're just like, you know what, you like vodka cocktails, I'll make you a great vodka cocktail. So making them something great that they have. But then when it's a quiet night, like you can go, okay, well, let's try this out. And they're like, oh, okay, I dig that. I can feel you on that one. And then they go to aviations or last words. And then they start really exploring where gin can take them. Brambles. We have a great bramble variation on the menu right now. And they're like, oh my God, this is fantastic. It's actually been a huge sell, which I wasn't expecting. But so I think it's a cultural, societal thing about how taste change as it goes through. And you just got to play that edge at all times and sort of like push certain people that are willing to get pushed that way over the edge.
Do you have any really cool stories about how a drink came to be? Like a cocktail that you came up with, like a pretty wild story that went into that becoming a thing?
So the Mayor Flame is a very notoriously well-known cocktail here. I think it was made for something close to 5 years after I left. So like off menu, it wasn't on the menu after I left. It was a call cocktail, which is a pleasant surprise. So it's a tequila, a ginger honey shrub, a green tea and serrano chili amaro, and grapefruit juice. And I was exploring shrub. It wasn't really known as shrubs before. Like when I was doing it, it was known as gastriques. So I was exploring gastriques with the chef one night, and it was for a cocktail competition in Vancouver. And so I was playing with ginger honey. I was like, this is perfect. This is great. And I think that actually came out of the reason why it's called Mayor Flame is that we did the Homage Cocktail Friday with Mayorwell in New York. It's closed now, but we did a Homage Cocktail Friday. One of their prep ingredients was a ginger honey shrub or ginger honey gastrique. And I was sort of playing around with this ingredient. I'm like, I've still got some of this left, so let's play around with this. And I was like, oh, green tea, serrano chili, this is really good. Obviously, tequila works really well because it's Mayorwell, the goddess of agave. Let's throw some grapefruit juice in this shake. And I went over to Vancouver for this cocktail competition, and it was just a gong show. Like the judges were just jokes. Like Solomon came over with me to compete as well, and his cocktail was hot. It was a hot cocktail, and the judges wrote down like, I don't think this cocktail should be hot. It should have used a reposado instead of blanco. And so they weren't judging the cocktail on what the cocktail was. They were judging on how they would do it, which is like
that's problematic.
Which is the biggest faux pas of like cocktail judging. It happens a lot still, but like, and mine was, I remember mine. I was second last. Solomon was last. I was second last, and they didn't like my garnish, so I did a big grapefruit peel over an ice globe. So I transported ice globes from Victoria on the ferry in an ice box for a cocktail competition, and they judged me down. And I did this grapefruit peel that I'd cut into a flame.
Okay.
And sit on the edge. And like, garnish is a joke. Like, these are the sort of comments on the sheet. I'm like, you know what? And it was around the time that I was sort of really trying to push this hypothesis that cocktail competition cocktails weren't doable in bars. Like, a lot of these guys would go like insane, like Jaffard pear, like Poir William has a pear in the bottle. So this guy cracked like 5 bottles to get the pear out and made a puree out of it. I'm like, well, you can't put that on the menu. You're not going to crack 5 bottles of Jaffard Poir William every week to make a cocktail. Like, this is ridiculous. Your cocktail competition cocktail should be able to be put on the menu. And that's just purely from a branding point of view. Like, these brands put up big money for these competitions. They send you to Mexico. They do all this stuff. They expect a little bit of ROI post-competition in your bar doing these cocktails. And I had this sort of hypothesis in my head.
And plus, if you win and it's a drink that you actually can do, then you can say this won this.
Exactly. And a lot of the times you can't.
Yeah.
And so I was like, screw it. I came back and I was like, I'm going to put the Mayor Flame on the menu. And it became like a massive seller at Clive's. Like I said, 5 years after I left, to the point that there was still prep for 2019 in the fridge when I came in, ginger honey shrub. And,
How did that make you feel when you saw that?
oh, I always love it. Like a cocktail as complex as that, still being a core cocktail is like a dream come true.
And off menu.
And off menu. Like a core cocktail off menu, still getting made, mental. And so that sort of proved my hypothesis that just because your cocktail doesn't win a cocktail competition doesn't mean it's not good. And judging is so subjective. The same judges will judge the same cocktail differently the very next day based on the food they ate in the morning, the coffee they had, did they have a fight with their girlfriend or the boyfriend at the time, like what sort of mind state are they in? They hung over and have like the taste of cat's ass in their mouth, like all these things. And so the Mayo or Flame sort of proved my hypothesis that just because a cocktail doesn't win a competition, actually comes second last out of like 14 competitors, that it's not successful. And it literally made, like Clive's Drunk Uncle's another one. Drunk Uncle's a very similar cocktail. Like it's a cocktail I did in 2019. It's a simple Boulevardier Negroni riff, Isla whiskey, China Martini Bianco, grapefruit twist. And I'm like, sweet, this is great. I had it on the menu for a long time. It got put into a Gary Reagan book, which I'm always thankful for Gaz for that. But when I got hired back here to take over, a kid in Sao Paulo in Brazil posted on his Instagram a picture of his drunk uncle, all in Portuguese except for my tag. It said at Shawn Soole. And I'm like, shit. Okay, well, maybe, and this is a drink that's 10 years old. And I'm like, well, Drunk Uncle's on the menu now. Like, it's come full circle. And like, if the Drunk Uncle's still getting like representation in Brazil and in Europe, I'm like, okay, maybe I can bring it back on the menu. And it still sells like hotcakes here.
That's incredible.
But nothing like the Mayo or Flame. The Mayo or Flame is a beast unto itself, to the point that is like...
So basically everyone that comes here should order that.
Once I get the prep redone, I haven't got the prep done. I took it off. It may come back next summer.
Okay.
But like they put 2 cocktails on the menu. One was called the Mayo or Killer, which was...
Is that the replacement?
Was supposed to be the replacement, and it still didn't cut it.
Okay.
And so they did the Mayo or Killer trying to get rid of this, like the Mayo or Flame calls. And
then the Mayo will come back.
And the Mayo will come back. So it was insane.
Do you have a favorite aspect of hospitality?
I think it's because every day is different. Like, I know that's a really cliche, cheesy freaking thing to say, but I think the thing is that you wake up every morning, and for me especially, I think you're a little bit the same. As like, you're a hardcore planner. Like, I plan the reason why I can achieve everything is I plan every 15 minutes of every single, like, my whole day.
I think to sort of grind, like, so when you step back, do you feel like you do a lot of stuff? Or do you feel like you're not doing enough? Like, there should be, you should have room for optimization to do more.
A bit of both.
Okay.
So a bit of both. So the reason why I think a bit of both, because I always want to push myself to do more, always. Yeah. It's just the nature of my beast. And I don't know, I think it comes from my father. My dad, he couldn't read when he was like 21. So he was in a lot of trouble in high school. He's from London in the UK. So like skinhead, Doc Martens, the whole shebang. When 16, he was told he was either going to go to jail or the military. Went to the military, killed, I shouldn't say kill, but as a term, but that's a little bit too much. But then when he came, he has a really high IQ, but he couldn't read and write. He bounced through high school, like left, right, and center, juvenile delinquent. My mum taught him how to read and write when he was 21, 22. Ridiculously smart man. Like, you're talking about math or name the 7 C's or do this, like an impressive gentleman. Like, he was just a truck driver. After he got out of the Navy, he was just a truck driver, but he never got he never got any tickets, parking or speeding or nothing. I've seen him spend an hour trying to back up the trailer exactly to the point that he wants it to be. So when he started becoming a business person, what I started working in when I was in high school, it was this constant drive of like, I would wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I would go load a truck full of sod or turf to be delivered that day. I would wash my arms and legs off in the car on like just a bottle of water, get in a school uniform, go to school from 9 a.m. to 3 a.m., hop back in the car, get back into my work clothes, and then go work from 3 till 10. And that was my day in, day out, 7 days a week.
At what age?
From 13 to 17.
Wow.
So it was this constant drive. My dad always said, regardless of what you do, he's like, I don't care if you're a ditch digger, a garbage man, whatever, just be the best you possibly be at it. Mm-hmm. And so that sort of drives me. But my mum always used to say, regardless of how good you are, there's always someone out there better than you. And so
I think those are good. Like the fact you got both of those pieces of advice are important, but that's great.
It's this sort of polar opposite pulling effect that I always want to be the smartest guy in the room. Mm-hmm. And so I always think that I didn't do enough today, or I didn't do enough. And then I update my resume for any reason, like whether it be to put on LinkedIn or anything. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, it's only been 7 years since I left Little Jumbo. Well, actually 6 years since I left Little Jumbo, literally to almost the month. I'm like, all the stuff that I've done in 6 years, I'm like, that's insane. Mm-hmm. I've done multiple seminars all over the world. I've spoken at big trade shows. I've won cocktail competitions. I've done national finals. I've opened 13 venues. And then I'm like, oh, okay, well, I have done enough. But then I still go, okay, well, I haven't really. So I think with hospitality, I think, especially being back here, it's kind of a breath of fresh air for me, and it invigorates me that while my whole week is really, really planned, I know that when I step in here at 3 o'clock on a Friday, when I'm about to start my shift, or 2:30 on a Friday when I'm about to start my shift, from that point on, nothing is planned. Everything is intangible. Everything is pivot and move forward, pivot and move forward.
There's a beauty to that.
And it is. It's kind of like a ballet or a really good football game. You know, like you sit in the locker room and you're like, the X's and the O's and the movements and all that sort of stuff. But then when you get on the field, everything can change. And I think that a little bit has revitalized me over the last couple of weeks, is that while it's exhausting and tiring to do 120 hours a week, it's that everything's planned, but then 3 o'clock on Friday, absolutely everything I can plan is done. And from that point on, I'm at the will of how many people we have come in, kegs blowing.
So is that time off in a way, almost on some level?
I think there's always a purity for me for bartending.
Yeah,
it's not robotic in a bad way, but it's so subconscious now. Like me pouring, me stirring, me shaking and stirring is just a movement that my body just gets into and jigs, and it is like my brain might be still firing, but my whole body just takes over. Like it's funny because a couple of the guys, I don't really eat on shift. But I never like have breaks to go to the washroom or anything on the shift. My body just shuts down to a point there. It's just like, hey, you've got a job to do for the next 8 hours. Just get it done. Like there's no washroom breaks. There's no sitting down. You're going to do 8 to 10 hours on your feet, and you're just going to, it just takes over. So I think there's a purity for me in bartending. Like there's always times, especially coming back here, I was like, oh, do I really want to go back to bartending? Like I've been working so hard lately to try and get away from the cocktail guy sort of like, the cocktail guy sort of mentality. I was like, do I want to go back? But I'm like, but there's a really good home base to have. I can do a lot of cool stuff there. I can become a practitioner and show people what I do for social media marketing and stuff like that. I was like, but bartending, which long term it's not going to happen. Like long term, I'm going to have a team here once we go 7 days, and I won't work the bar very often. Maybe 1 shift a week, 2 shifts every 2 weeks, sort of thing.
And how often are you here right now?
I'm definitely here Friday, Saturdays every week.
Okay.
So, but then I come in and do menus for the guys, and tomorrow night I'm supporting the guys because I'm short staffed, so I'll work support for the guys tomorrow night. But there's a certain level of just purity in doing what you like doing. You know, it's like I think it is like an athlete becoming like a GM of the sports team or something. Mm-hmm. There's just something about going down on the field and throwing the ball, or like taking a tackle, or just playing around like that. I think there's a certain level of just it's like meditation. Like there's no worrying about clients, there's no worrying about partners, there's no worrying about projects. It's just cocktails, and there's a little bit of labor in doing the financial side of things, but it's just cocktails and making great cocktails. making sure that garnish is on point, doing it as quickly and cleanly as possible, supporting your team, like building your team up and getting them excited, enthusiastic about it. So yeah, I think bartending as a whole, but I feel the same way when I serve. Like when I was general manager and I served, it's just something. I love going in the dish pit too. Like I love doing dishes. People think I'm mental, but like,
you love the process straight up.
There's nothing better than like just stepping off the floor, taking your tie off, and doing dishes for an hour and a half, and it's just this beautiful place where you just do it. Like you have a goal, you have a job, you do it, you put in the dishwasher, you pull it out, the goal is there. It's quick gratification. It's just it is like a drug.
And what are you thinking about when you're doing dishes?
Nothing.
Okay.
Like nothing. I'm not like planning something else or anything like that. I'm not thinking about anything.
So is it almost like a meditation on some level?
Yeah. I started off in the dish pit when I was a kid. So I started off in the dish. I wasn't a bartender for about 12 to 18 months when I got in the industry. I started off doing dishes 6 a.m. on a Saturday morning in a restaurant, a buffet restaurant of all that. So there's just tons of dishes. And there's just some gratification about cleaning that dish pit out, getting all those dishes done, more dishes come in. So it's another tackle job. So I think it's just a short-term gratification on applying that to long-term gratification that I get now. Like patio took a month. There's a lot of steps to get to that patio. The patio was up. I came in early. I set it up, got the guys ready to go, and the gratification's there.
I know. I love the fact you did that time-lapse video that day of setting up the whole thing being done.
Yeah.
I thought that was great. So you started off as a dishwasher. How did you just take it because it was a job, you were young, or how did that all work that you getting into the industry?
So I think it was my 17th or 18th birthday on Christmas Day. My father and I had a massive falling out and I punched him.
Oh, that's not good.
And so he kicked me out of home. So I got kicked out of the home, like $500 in my pocket, packed up all my stuff, and drove me about an hour and a half into the city, because I grew up in the country, and dropped me off at a friend's house, and basically let me fend for myself. Lucky enough, I had good friends. I slept on the couch for a couple of weeks, started looking for jobs, and with my landscaping background, I got a job as a handyman, junior handyman at a small 3-star hotel off a big park in Brisbane. And so I started being the junior handyman. So the main handyman would come in about 9 o'clock. I was supposed to be there at 7. I'd be like changing light bulbs and cleaning windows and helping the housekeeping staff take out linens and stuff like that. Never been in hospitality. My mother was a horrible cook. Like just it's a typical horrible like cook, like family of 6, all 18 months apart. So 5 boys, 1 girl. There was like always 3 of us going through puberty. One was ending, one was starting, one was in the middle. And so the amount of food that my house would go through was just ridiculous. So mum would literally cook 2 or 3 kilos of potatoes and just mash them up in the pot, little smidge of butter, no salt. We didn't have salt and pepper in the house, and literally just mash them up and on the table. And so you scoop out like prison rules, elbows on the table. So I'd never been exposed to restaurants, being in a small town. My graduating high school class was like 62 people. Oh, wow. So small town, no restaurants anywhere for like 10, 15 kilometers. And so started working in this hotel, and maintenance and housekeeping and all that sort of stuff as like a 17, 18-year-old kid. And one night, one of the guys was like, "Hey, do you have black and whites? We're short-staffed." I'm like, "Yeah, I have my black and whites, but I wear to interviews and stuff." And they're like, "Cool, go home, get them, come back for 7 o'clock." So I came back and bartended and served a wedding. And then that was pretty much it. That was the bug. Like I started bartending upstairs in the bar in the restaurant and doing breakfast service outside the kitchen and helping with that, and really sort of delved in. I was super young then. I remember the first time someone asked me for a martini, and it was like, yeah, I'm out, and literally walked out the bar with my hands up and let the other bartender make the martini, because I was just like, I don't even want to tackle this sucker. I don't know what a martini is. I have no idea. Then I started like really delving in, and so over a space,
you knew at that point that it was something that you were pretty passionate about.
I think it was something that was outside the norm. Like working in landscaping for 2 years, like you're eating McDonald's and drinking like 2 liter Cokes and 42-degree heat and grinding out like yard after yard after yard. And me and my brothers became very well known in the suburbs of being super fast sod layers. Like most teams could do like 50 square meters an hour, and we would get up to 75 to 100 square meters an hour. So we were like,
Wow.
we could do a full size like suburban yard in a space before lunch, basically. And so it was that hard grind. And then I sort of saw hospitality as a sort of glamorous like life change. And so I started delving into it. And back then, like we're talking 1997, 98, there was no internet. Like there was no smartphones. Like if you wanted to learn about cocktails, there wasn't even bar courses. Like you would have to go and like go to bookstores and buy books and take them home and read them and write them. And so by the time I was 2021, I went for my first state title at a cocktail competition and won. And so I won a state title for a cocktail competition, and I'll have to send some photos through because there are photos floating around of that photo shoot after I won that. And I was like 150 pounds and 6'2". I was very skinny, but and then that sort of just fed it. And back in the day, I used to be really upset that I jump around from job to job. But now looking back, like I literally would get a job as a bartender or a supervisor or a server or whatever. I would literally just suck that job dry of everything I could learn. And then be like, okay, I'm done. I'm going to move on. And from 21 to 25, I worked number of places, from nightclubs to silver service, serving like the premier of Queensland and all this sort of crazy stuff. And I'd go from silver service lunch service in a dining hall to a nightclub, to finishing up in the nightclub and going upstairs to the cocktail bar and finishing the cocktail bar off till 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. And then I got a job at a really good high-end cocktail bar, and that's when it really started like ticking with me. But with everything that's gone on, I think I grew up here in Canada. More so when I came here when I was 26. And so that was the big transformation. I don't think I'd be where I am in my career without coming to Canada, if that makes sense.
And where did you come to in Canada?
Victoria.
Oh, you did?
Never lived anywhere else.
And so why did you come to Victoria?
A girl.
Okay.
Not my wife.
Well, it's you're lucky, I guess, that you got led to Victoria, because I think Victoria is amazing.
It was. And that's the thing is, like, I fell in love with Victoria really hard. Like it reminded me a lot of Brisbane, but I came and I started exploring myself a lot on a personal level. And I was 25, 26 when I came, like 26 when I came. So I fell in love with Victoria. I broke up with the girl very quickly afterwards, but I was like, oh, this has got something special about Victoria. And again, there was no cocktail scene. Like I came from being named one of the best bartenders in Australia before I left to being a nobody, a nothing. And so I got into my wine. I worked at Moxie's not knowing what a franchise was at all. We don't have franchises like Moxie's in Australia. We don't have Cactus Clubs or anything like that. And then I started getting back in my cocktails when Solomon's opened. And that's what sort of sparked it all back up. I did a cocktail competition in New York. I had a magazine in New York for a little while there in the 29s, 2010s as well. So I had a magazine that I was writing for in New York at that time too, which is all cocktail related. So it was like I was living outside the culture here in Victoria. Mm-hmm. And then Solomon's open and I'm like, oh, I've got a brethren. Like I got someone who I can actually like talk to. This is awesome. We can actually chat about cocktails. And I remember Solomon always loved this story too. But I remember the first night Solomon's opened, me and Jill went down. People always find it weird that I call her my wife or the wife, but it's a capital T and a capital W is for the wife. She's like, it's capitalized. So me and Jill went down. We weren't married at the time. And I ordered a gimlet. And me and Solomon got into a Barney. Like a Barney.
What's a Barney?
A fight, like a verbal, like not like a big fight, but like a verbal altercation on how to make a gimlet.
I see.
Because he was super old school. Like he was trying to do a certain style of cocktail, and I like my gimlets with roses lime cordial. I'm ghetto when I'm super ghetto with my gimlets. And traditionally it would have been made with lime cordial. The lime cordial's changed over the years. So roses was created to fight scurvy on British ships. It would have had a higher level of sulfuric acid or sulfur in it, so it would have been a bit punchier. But you would be 2 ounces of gin. I think a lot of the times right then and there, everybody was going like sugar syrup and fresh lime juice. I'm like, I don't want that. I want my ghetto gimlet. And we had a big verbal, which me and Sol have had multiple verbal altercations over the years. Never that we like don't talk to each other afterwards, but we always have these fights that people walk away from. Whether it be ice dilution and size or how to make a simple syrup, all these things, we have these massive disagreements because we're both very passionate. So I ordered a gimlet, and that was the time that I was like, Victoria's ready for this. You know, like I looked around and I saw people Art of the Cocktail started that year. Art of the Cocktail started that year for the very first time. And I was like, maybe the last 3 years of me being in Victoria have sort of Victoria's caught up. Vancouver was pretty behind as well, but caught up to where we were in Australia. And so that's when I started really getting back into like, okay, well, cocktails are going to be big in Victoria. It's coming.
Well, it's like speaking about Brad at Olo when he had Ula.
Yep.
And he had to redo it because Victoria wasn't ready for that.
And I think Victoria's always one of those cities that I laugh when people always post like, oh, there's nowhere to have good lunch in Victoria. I'm like, okay, you open for lunch and then no one comes.
Yeah.
Like everybody always complains about lunch until you actually open for lunch. And then it's like, oh, there's no good place to have brunch. Okay, I'll open for brunch. No one comes. So I think everybody like Brad at Ulo for sure. Like Ulo was always way ahead of its time. But it catered to a very specific style of clientele that had traveled the world and seen places in New York, seen places in San Francisco and gone, oh, this is what dining is really about.
It was getting a promotion, or it was getting like recognized in like New York and San Francisco, and in Victoria, like it was like didn't work.
Exactly. You know, it's the same thing with Clive's back in 2011, 2012. Like people like New York knew about us, San Francisco knew about us, London knew about us, but in Victoria, people were like, why do you do cocktails like this? Why is it in a tiny glass? Why can't I get a cosmopolitan? And so I think when you're trying to push being ahead of the curve, it's always one of those things you just got to grit your teeth sometimes and go, you know what? I believe in my vision. I believe in what I'm going to do, and I'm going to believe that I'm going to follow through with it. Where
would you say the state of cocktails are now in Victoria, and where are they going?
I think I'm happy with the direction of where cocktails are going. We've talked about Veneto, and the loss of Veneto, I think, is a huge thing for Victoria. I think people underestimate just the impact of what Veneto as a venue has done. But on the flip side, what Mikey and Anton have done over at Nubo really shows that it's about the people that can make a venue, like make or break a venue, really. So I think we're in a good direction. I think there's still certain things that I look at and I'm like, okay, well, we've plateaued to a degree, but I'm hoping that some of the youngsters gain some rope. Like I looked at the new cocktail menu at Nubo, really fantastic menu, like really good menu is coming out very shortly. I'm really hopeful for that.
Yeah, I was sitting with them. I stopped by randomly and they're sitting outside on the patio.
Yeah.
And they were going back and forth about it because they both have strong opinions.
Yeah, definitely.
And I love just sitting there and hear them just go over everything.
I think for cocktail culture in Victoria, I want to see more venues and more operators and owners give some of these kids some more leeway. Like it is scary as an operator and owner. I get it. Like doing weird cocktails and doing like infusions and stuff like this. It is precarious. But at the end of the day, a lot of these kids are very talented and they either know already or they reach out to their mentors to teach them new things like costings and seeing how things are going to flow and stuff like that. But I think a lot of it is a lot of kids. There's a big gap. There's me and Solomon at the very, like the older guys. Nate and Kyle from Nimble Bar Company, they sort of sit in the middle. They're not young, they're not old, but there's a smaller portion of that. And then you've got this massive swath and this big age gap between Solomon and I to these youngsters, like 25, 26 years old. Me and Solomon going on 40. So there's this big gap. And so a lot of these kids don't have the the capital or budget to open up their own place and express themselves. So it really comes down to these operators putting faith in them and giving them some patience and some time to really evolve. And I think Ine and Nubo have done that absolutely fantastically, because it is scary as hell as a new operator going, here you go. We need all these.
Shawn there, I mean, he's doing a lot because he's got 4 places now.
Exactly. So, like, it's a big move to like put your faith in a 26-year-old kid to bring out a great cocktail menu and then hire all his buddies, basically, even though they're super talented, but like really hiring a great team. So they've done a really great job on that. So you just need that, like, that little bit of leeway and that little bit of rope, and all of a sudden you really can win in it. But it does take a lot. Like, I remind the kids that I had to do it here. Like, there was a petition out when I first took over this place for me to get fired because I stopped playing sports.
Oh, really?
Yes, from guests and staff. So, like, that was a really awkward conversation to have with the old food and beverage director, that I had calls made for my expulsion from Clive's because I wanted to change things too much. But then bit by bit, we started making more money. We started getting busier. We started getting recognition. We started getting press. And all of a sudden, the snowball starts happening. They're like, oh, you're not as eccentric and crazy as we thought you were.
I guess you just can't push it too hard at the start.
It goes back to the boiling frog theory. Like, if you throw a frog in a boiling pot of water, it'll jump out. But if you put a frog in a pot of cold water and put it on heat, it'll just sit there and let it simmer until it dies. Which, obviously, the result is not death, but it's that sort of adaptation bit by bit by bit. And there's a lot of conversations you have where you're like, I understand that this is really ostentatious and crazy, but trust me, it's going to work.
Transparency is great.
You have to be transparent.
Yeah.
If
you want people to trust you.
Yep. You have to have transparency. You need to be open lines of communication. I don't have a stomach ulcer anymore because I'm transparent as hell.
I love it. Dude, do you have an influence in how you operate, just in general?
From outside influences?
Could be anybody.
Well, we've talked about Gary Vee. Like, I discovered Gary Vee a couple of years ago. Like, it pushed me to go back to school. I went back to school a couple of years ago. I haven't finished off my diploma, but my advanced diploma, because of my trip to Singapore last year. But I went back to school. I did my advanced diploma in tourism and hospitality management. A lot of the courses were super easy and I breezed through them. But then I did HR and strategic financial planning, and which have really added to myself. And I think outside influences are Gary Vee. I haven't had a lot of other outside influences. Like, I'm not a big podcast listener outside of Gary Vee.
Yeah, Gary Vee is incredible, by the way. If no one's seen him, Gary Vaynerchuk, you need to go check him out.
And I've had a lot of people like do the usual, like, oh, well, he got given money by his dad and all this stuff. I'm like, I aligned myself pretty hard with him being an entrepreneur and doing things like taking this place from zero to Clive's, and helping my family's business and all these sort of things. So it's always been difficult, I think, for me a little bit to a degree, is that I've never really had a mentor per se, because like when I was in the industry in Australia, there wasn't a lot of older mentors. Like, we were all sort of just scrambling to try and figure this out ourselves. I would say that someone like Gary Reagan, Philip Duff have been big influences on my career. Solomon at Pagliacci's has always been a massive influence for me. Like, we had a good relationship, but then when everything happened at Little Jumbo, he stepped up in a way a friend probably went above and beyond. And so me and Sol are always going to be probably really close. And we've done seminars all over the world. We've had great trips and we've had great stories and fun and stuff like that. But for me, it's always about waking up the next morning and hoping to be better than I was the day before. So, and it's a lot of pressure to put on yourself, but
that's how I operate. I honestly think the fact, like, right now I'm perfect for who I need to be right now, like today. But if I was the exact same person a year from now, then I wouldn't be adequate for a year from now.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm perfect for today.
Yeah.
Like, I keep pushing it. But I guess for me, I don't feel it as pressure. I get excited by it and I enjoy the change and being able to reflect back on the way of, like, maybe I'll do something and it'll click in my head that I would have not have done that thing that way previously.
100%.
And that's like this dopamine hit when I realized that I just like leveled up.
Just gain that. Just give it to me. Just give it to me.
Oh, I love it.
But no, I agree with you. It's one of those things. Is like, I think that I look back and I even look back at the breakup at Little Jumbo, and I'm like, I could have dealt with that way better. Like I could have seen that happening and could have been a better person for that. But on the flip side, like it's taken me a long time, and apart from my wife would love me to go to therapy, but I don't do therapy. But it's been one of those things that if you don't learn from the mistakes you've made, you're just going to keep making the same mistakes.
100%.
And it's a ton of pressure to put on yourself to be better than the day before. But on the flip side, why would you not want to be better than the day before? You could die tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why would you want to keep just along? Like, it makes no sense to me. Like, being better. And it's not about money. It's never been about money for me. It's always been chasing that happiness. Like, I'm happy most days of the week, unless I'm stressful. But like that happiness, that
I try to shoot for like 80-20.
That,
or 90-10.
That's a good shot. That's a good shoot. I like that.
Make it like 80%. Like I'm great.
Yep.
20%. Life's not perfect. You know,
like it's going to happen. But I think waking up. I think everybody needs that a little bit more in their life. Like you could literally die tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally die. And I'm like, well, what do you want to achieve in your life? Like waiting for it to happen to you is not going to happen. Like again, it goes back to me moving 14 schools or my fallout with Little Jumbo or anything like that. You're going to have to bounce back. And I think that's why I don't take more uncalculated risks. I take more calculated risks now because I know personally I can bounce back from more than I used to be able to. You know, like the loss of Little Jumbo almost like ended me. And that was a really tough like year period. And there's still a little like niggling in the back of my head just that I could have done better. But you could be done tomorrow. There's no second round. It's it. Like, so wake up and just go, you know what? I fucking shat the bed last night, yesterday. I'm not going to do that today.
Yeah. And I mean, I just think like for me personally, I'm so busy that if I do mess something up or whatever, I absolutely try to learn from it, but I can't dwell on it because I don't have time.
Exactly.
You just have to plow ahead and acknowledge the fact that happened, but now you're better for it. And it's a gift in a way, an opportunity to learn. I 100%
agree.
Yeah.
100% agree. Like I look back at all the mistakes and mistakes or screw ups or whatever. And I look back and I'm like, I'm lucky that I've got my wife, who is just, again, the most supporting woman in the world. But to keep moving forward, you just got to have to, like, because people's opinions of you I can't change what you do, nothing like that. It has to just keep going forward. Like, you have to have a high enough opinion of yourself to keep pushing through it, because people are going to say shit. People are going to talk behind your back. People are going to have opinions of you. But everybody you meet in the street has a different opinion of you. They have a different perception of you, and their perception doesn't define who you are.
No, and I mean, Gary Vee talks a lot about that.
Yeah.
Where you can't take that on at all, because it makes no logical sense, really.
Not at all.
Where is Shawn Soole in 5 to 10 years, do you think? Or where do you hope to be? What does the future look like for you?
I think I plan little things in the future, but I don't think I have an end game.
I think that's kind of healthy, I think.
To be honest, I have little goals that I'd like to get on a personal and a business level. Like, I'd love to see, because all my companies are very hospitality centric, I'd love to really see my media company really make a difference in the way that distilleries in BC and wineries in the province make changes to their online like platforms and presentations and stuff. My branding guy is a super talented guy. I'd love to see at least one. I think in the next couple of years, I probably will try and take all the things that I'm working on right now and invest in a brand, like a distillery or a small BC distillery, and apply all the things that I'm working on: branding, design, logo work, social media marketing, online. So
you're building
presence.
the machine that you'll be able to apply to something.
Yeah, I know it's very Gary Vee, but it's
a great methodology.
I want to apply all the things that I'm working on to a brand so that I can be a practitioner of it and sort of show people, like, listen, like, you guys said no, you called me the cocktail guy, you said I couldn't do this. Here's the brand that I helped build and just sold for X amount of dollars.
Yeah.
I think I'd like to spend a bit more time with my family than I do now, which I think is, people wonder. Sometimes I think people don't believe my family exists, because of what I do. I think it was only a couple of years ago that people were like, oh, you have a kid? I'm like, yes. You're actually married still? I'm like, yes. I think there's a couple of personal things. I like to go on a vacation once a year is one to keep my wife happy.
First spot you'd want to go to?
I'd like to take her to Europe. I'd like to take her to France. I'd like to take her to Italy. I like her to experience food and stuff the way that I do. Because I have certain rules when I go on bar crawls in cities, that it's one drink, one bite to eat at each bar. And so she sees all my credit card pop-ups on her phone alerts. And she's like, dude, you fit 8 bars in 5 hours. I'm like, yeah, I'm good. But sometimes I'm only in town for like 24 hours, 48 hours. So I got to try and maximize my time. So if the next bar I'm going to is less than 20-minute walk, I'll walk it.
Yeah.
Like half an hour is a little bit too long, but anything like 20 minutes and under, I will walk to the next bar, do the same thing. So I've hit like 10 to 12 places in a night from 3 o'clock till midnight in some cities. I like to do that for them because I'm getting older. Like I'm turning 40 this year, and my daughter's turning 10, and so I'd like to get her to experience some of the things that I never got to experience as a kid, but now I have the luxury to do so. And I have a fetish for cars. So I have a bit of a thing for cars. So if I ever do make a couple of $1 million, my wife is in so much trouble when it comes to my garage sort of situation.
How much space do you have right now?
Not enough for what I want. So,
okay.
So, yeah, I'd like to get a car that's sort of, that's one of those things. It's like the cigar and the whiskey on the back porch, like that Sunday drive by yourself, listening to music, top down, burling down Dallas Road when the road works aren't horrible and bang up my suspension, but like bang down whole thing is just a personal thing because I do a lot of stuff for whether it be the industry or the family or my partners. So I like those little things. But I don't think I have an end game because I thought about it. I was listening to a podcast from Gary Vee the other day, and he obviously talks about the Jets.
Oh yeah, 100%.
That's his big thing. I just don't think I have a big thing. Like I'd like to keep working for a long time. Like I'd love my legacy to be 85% of the bartenders in Victoria to be trained by me in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Multiple distilleries and wineries and breweries and stuff have branding packages from my team or media done by my guys. So like I think it is very cliche and very, I know Gary Vee, because we're both big listeners, like it's all about that process and not necessarily the result. I think that's just it. It's like I think legacy is my thing right now. The next 20 years, like I've still got at least 20 to 30 years in me, whether it be working behind the bar or otherwise, to build something that when I pass away in 40 years, that people go, you know what, we wouldn't have cocktail culture in Victoria if it wasn't for him. We wouldn't have cocktail culture in the Pacific Northwest because of what Shawn pulled off. So I think legacy is my end game.
That's kind of like for me too. I've been thinking a lot and just role playing the fact that like we're not around forever.
No.
So and a lot of people unfortunately get forgotten in time. And yeah, that's something like that's probably one of the reasons why I'm doing these podcasts a little bit, is to try and do as big of an impact as I can locally and help as many people as I can.
Well, because it's not like notebooks anymore. Like back in the day, you would write down notes and you would take notes about who you met and that sort of thing. Yeah. And those notebooks would just disappear over time. This is on the internet forever.
Exactly.
Like this is not going anywhere.
And I've thought about that too, that these will live forever.
Yeah.
And these people everyone that I'm talking to and all these personalities, these unique personalities will be documented. And just all the amazing people in the city and just what everyone's doing. It's incredible.
Like my daughter's starting to wrap her head around it now because she likes to make fun of me because there's a couple of times she sent me a little thing. But the other day we're walking down to have breakfast and a car drive past. I was like, hey, Shawn Soole. And she's like, who is that, Daddy? I'm like, oh, it's just a bartender. He's like, but why is he saying hello to you? Like in the street like that? And I'm like, because that's how Daddy is. And then the other night, though, it was weird. Someone paid $10 for my signature here.
Really?
Yes. Which I found very, very odd.
Did they want to give you $10?
Yeah.
They're like,
Well, because the servers did it all, and they thought it was hilarious. And the girl that was with him was just like, "We'll pay you $10 to get a signature." And they're like,
Okay.
"Oh, okay." And so they came. I'm like, I found out about it after he left. I'm like, I wouldn't have fucking charged him, guys. Like, I would just give him my freaking signature. All the staff were just like, "Why does he want your signature?" And my daughter's like, "What?" I'm like, you've never listened to, like, you on YouTube all the time. You've never listened to, like, watched one of Daddy's videos? She's like, no, they're boring. And I'm like, okay, cool. And it's like cocktails, people, bartenders, me, my shoes. Like, that's what your Instagram's about. She's got a little Instagram account. And so she's trying to wrap her head around the fact that she's like, but why do people want your signature? I'm like, well, because I wrote some books. She's like, ooh, you wrote 2 books. Ooh, look at me. I'm Shawn Soole.
that's hilarious, dude. And would you say there's a number one lesson you've learned through being in the industry over all the years?
This one's going to be hard for people to swallow because I don't think they believe I have it, but humility. I think really truly understanding that you fucked up, or like you made a mistake. And it goes back to little micro things like that bad Yelp review, like that sort of thing just guts you. And like, you might have had a busy night, been like jammed packed full of things, and someone came up to the bar and asked for a certain cocktail and you like snapped them or something like that. But again, it comes back to like, I'm extremely humble and grateful for everything that's been given to me over the last decade. You know, like I've been lucky and fortunate, and luck has a lot to do with it, but it is also a ton of work and sacrifice. So I think you gotta have that humility, and I think people don't think I have it per se because of my persona, my Hulk persona. Like, they're like, oh, you're just an egotistical, arrogant Australian. I'm like, well, there's been a lot of sacrifice and work behind that bravado that comes with understanding that you've got to also be humble. You know, like leaving here, which was to a lot of people a very sweet gig, to open up Little Jumbo was a huge risk. And I know a lot of people, when I left, like unceremoniously left Little Jumbo, that was like a huge like win for most people, because they were like, oh, well, he tried his hardest and completely ballsed it up. So I think humility and gratitude is always something, because like you said, doing a podcast, that's awesome. Is anyone listening? So you got to be humble. Like, you got to be grateful and humble for absolutely every single listen of every single episode.
You have no idea. I literally was like, I was going to be stoked if like 20 people listened to the episodes, and it's been way more than that. And it's giving me chills right now. Yep. Like, I want to thank everyone that's listening, like from the bottom of my heart. Like, it means more than I can ever express in words. And
you have people go, oh, you're doing it for ego, or like, who's listening? Like, there's always someone out there. Like, I'll put out an episode. Like, I put out the work-life balance episode today. Someone on LinkedIn was like, thank you so much for this. It's really meant a lot to me. Like, we can't keep putting pressure on our staff to work like we do. Like, everybody's different. And it's always those weird little messages, like that random kid in Australia that was like, I just listened to this episode, been going through a really rough patch. Like, it's really nice to hear that you have the same problems that I have, even in the position that you're in when it comes to mental health and stuff. So I think that those little grateful moments and those little humble moments, that like, you can do all this and it could mean diddly squat, but 9 times out of 10, it's going to mean something to someone. So I think humility in all of it. Like, I know that some of my cocktails are ostentatious, so I've become more consumer centric over the last couple of years. So humility is the one thing.
Dude, I love it. We're almost at 3 hours.
Seriously?
Yeah. Oh yeah. This has been the longest one by far. It's been amazing.
It feels like it's gone forever.
Dude, so if people want to find out more, you're probably gonna have the best, like this. You just go. It's not you just go. Tell people where they need to go.
So Instagram, you can follow me on at Shawn Soole on Instagram, or at Soole Hospitality Concepts. I think it's the whole word, Soole Hospitality Concepts. It's funny that I'm the only. If you Google Shawn Soole, my spelling, there's only me.
Oh, it makes it easy.
There is no other Shawn Soole with my spelling in the world, which is really, really weird.
Amazing.
It's creepy as hell. Although there is a Shawn Soole spelled SEAN in Australia, and he's a hospitality consultant.
Oh.
I shit you not. Creepy as hell.
Really?
Yeah. We're not related.
If you spell it your way, though, you could put the Shawn Soole, literally.
No, I'm not going to do that. You can find me on Facebook, on Twitter. Twitter, I'm Shawn Soole. You can go to SooleHospitality.com and find my podcast, Post Chef Podcast, or just look up on your local little podcast thing, Apple and Stitcher and Spotify and whatnot. BC Spirits is my passion project. You can find BC Spirits at BC Spirits on Instagram and bcspirits.com. All my companies, I'm not going to bother mentioning all those. That'll be overkill. So, because I've got the Human Construct Branding and Design, Exemplar LM, Canadian Bar Store, BC Spirit Swag Store. I'm missing one.
Soole.
SHC.
Yeah, I was going to say. And if anyone's looking for what I'm doing, you can go to www.vicfoodguys.ca and you'll find these podcasts, or look up VicFoodGuys on Instagram. That's
Dude,
it.
this has been epic.
This has been great.
This has been
like coming into this, I knew that like you do a lot, and I was saying that. I'm like, I don't know how the hell I'm going to try and get around all of this. I feel like this was like just an absolutely awesome.
This has been the best interview I've ever been given ever in my life.
Really?
I shit you not. Like, we covered so much stuff. It's the best interview I've ever, like, anyone's ever given me in my life.
Oh, no,
like
thank you for that
you went
feedback.
like this instead of people going like, again, cocktail guy. Let's talk about your cocktail book.
No, we want more than that.
We went so broad, and it is by far the best. Like, I've been waiting for someone. It sounds really egotistical, but I've been waiting for someone to interview me like what we just did.
I love it.
It's been epic.
Thank you very much, Shawn. Thank you.
Thank you, buddy.
Okay.